Very, very good afternoon to you. It's 3 p.m. and welcome to the Martin Daubney Show on GB News. We're broadcasting for you live across the UK, all the very latest news, debate and analysis all the way through until 6 p.m. And here's what's coming up on today's action-packed show. Shabana Mahmood is considering a big increase in golden goodbye payments for illegal immigrants. The current $3,000 maximum could go as high as 20 grand. And with a Romanian rapist who raped 10 women being offered a £1,500 so-called fee to flee the country, is it time to axe these payouts? And an astonishing 500 immigrants are signing on to benefits in Britain every single day, with 1.3 million foreigners on universal credit, costing British taxpayers, that's right, you at home, £10 billion a year. Well, today, earlier on in the Commons, Shabana Mahmood said this.
Specifically, it proposes that benefits might not be available to those who have settled status, reserving them instead for those who have earned British citizenship.
But here's the point. Ms Mahmood stopped short of a reform-style total ban on benefits for immigrants. Is this just yet more tough talking? And I bet he's sweating now, as today is the deadline for Andrew Mountbatten-Windsor to respond to the American Jeffrey Epstein inquiry. What will the former prince decide?
A few miles down the road from that first stop, we now have what potentially could be the target vehicle and the man we want, the international cocaine smuggler.
Yes, it's Ice Ice Baby. In a GB News exclusive, Ben Leo joins the United States Immigration and Customs Enforcement Team, ICE, for a raid there in Florida. And here's a big question. Could Britain really become a banana republic? Well, Alistair Heath, the editor of the Sunday Telegraph, puts the chance of Britain going bananas at 75%. He'll be joining me later on in the studio to explain. And finally, today in today's show, I'll be joined by an astonishingly brave lady, Pauline Wally, who is living in fear after being attacked by a Syrian immigrant whilst doing her job. This is a shocking story and you will not want to miss it. Benefits may be reserved for Brits only. May. Why not? Will be reserved for Brits only. Shabana Mahmood is posturing herself as the tough talker on immigration, on asylum, on the clampdown, a sort of Priti Patel of the left. But is it just all bluster and hot air? Today, we could have said no benefits for those coming to our country from abroad. We could have said immediate deportation for rapists. Instead, it may happen. And we've got an astonishing story today of a Romanian rapist who raped 10 British women being offered £1,500 of your money to flee the country. Really, does that sound like a clampdown to you? Or yet more example of soft touch Britain? Get in touch, gbnews.com/ is the way to do so. First time for your headlines, and here's Tatiana Sanchez.
Martin, thank you very much. The top stories. The Home Secretary has unveiled one of the most sweeping rewrites of the UK's migration rules in decades, warning that years of rapid arrivals have destabilised communities. Shabana Mahmood says settlement will no longer be automatic, with tougher checks, longer waits and new expectations on English, tax contributions and criminal records. It means almost 2 million people who migrated legally to Britain since 2021 will now need to have been in the UK for 10 years instead of 5 in order to be considered for permanent settlement. But the opposition mocked the announcement, with Shadow Home Secretary Chris Philp joking that Labour had simply borrowed Conservative policy and rebranded it as their own.
There is much in this statement I support, not least because so much of it is so familiar. So I am delighted, Madam Deputy Speaker, to see that the Shadow Home Secretary, upon arrival at number 2 Marsham Street, has got out the copy and paste function on her laptop and started copying and pasting conservative policies.
Shabana Mahmood hit back, insisting the Tories lost the right to lecture anyone after presiding over record migration and what she called an open border experiment.
Given their current track record, they barely have the right to ask questions, let alone propose solutions. Like settlement, it's my view that you have to earn the right to offer solutions, and I would say to him one way of earning that right would be to apologise for what the Tories did first and foremost.
The government's under fire over Britain's defence readiness after the sighting of a Russian spy ship off Scotland and claims the UK's defences are still dangerously exposed. Shadow Defence Secretary James Cartledge blasted what he called Labour's glacial pace on strengthening security, warning the Yantar's laser attack on RAF pilots marks a serious escalation. But Defence Minister Alistair Cairns hit back, accusing the Conservatives of leaving Britain's armed forces decrepit. He said the Yantar will not go unchallenged, with the Navy and RAF tracking its every move, and warned Russia that any attempt to interfere with UK undersea infrastructure would be met with the firmest response.
The Yantar has once again been operating in and around the UK's EEZ for the second time this year. During this time, she was continuously monitored by Royal Navy frigate HMS Somerset and the RAF's P8s. We will ensure that the Yantar is not able to conduct its mission unchallenged or untracked. But this has not been without difficulties.
In other news, the COVID inquiry prepares to publish its long-awaited report into political decision-making during the pandemic. The findings will examine how key ministers and senior officials still in government handled the crisis, from the timing of the first lockdown in March of 2020 to the delayed second one that autumn. It'll assess whether enough attention was paid to the impact of restrictions on vulnerable groups and scrutinise the government's messaging, including those stark public health adverts. More than 160 witnesses, including Boris Johnson, have given evidence, with all 4 UK nations now set to come under the microscope. After one of the most shocking police abuse cases in UK history, David Carrick has been jailed for life again, this time with a 30-year minimum term for molesting a 12-year-old girl and raping a former partner. The ex-armed Met officer, already serving dozens of life sentences for 71 previous sex offences, was convicted of 5 indecent assaults on a child in the late 1980s and rape and coercive control against a woman he terrorised for years. Jurors saw a handwritten confession signed Dave and heard how his later victim said he ruined her life. Prosecutors called him a manipulative predator who hid behind his warrant card. Detectives say these new convictions finally give his victims a voice and warn that if his confession had been acted on back in 1990, many more women could have been protected. President Trump has reportedly approved a secret 28-point peace proposal drawn up with Russia, a plan that Ukraine wasn't involved in. American military officials are now heading to Kyiv to restart talks, as leaks claim the proposal would force Ukraine to give up the entire Donbas region, cap its long-range weapons and even limit the size of its military. Kyiv says those demands would be outright capitulation after Moscow pushed similar terms before. The US State Department won't comment, and Secretary of State Marco Rubio hasn't addressed the reports directly, but says both sides need realistic ideas if talks are ever going to move. And the UK has shivered through its coldest night so far, with temperatures sinking well below freezing across all 4 nations, down to -6 in Cumbria and -5 in Wales. Yellow warnings for snow and ice stretch across much of the country, and there's an amber alert for North Yorkshire, where up to 25 centimetres of snow could fall on higher ground. Forecasters say some could even see thunder snow later. That's rare winter thunderstorms with heavy, fast-falling snow. And around 100 schools in northern Scotland are closed as snow and ice bring further disruption across the area. And those are the latest GB News headlines for now. More from me in half an hour.
Cheers Britannia Wine Club proudly sponsors the GB News Financial Report.
Here's a quick snapshot of the markets. The pound buying you $1.3062 and €1.1346. The price of gold, £3,127.37 per ounce, and the FTSE 100 is at 9,550 points.
Cheers Britannia Wine Club proudly sponsors the GB News Financial Report.
Thank you, Tatiana. Here's today's question. Is Britain simply starting to resemble a massive, gigantic cash machine? Because as record numbers of migrants are claiming universal credit payments last month, 472 migrants every single day began claiming universal credit, while the overall number of foreign nationals receiving it rose to an astonishing 1.3 million. That's an increase of 6.7% in that year alone. The total bill now, over £10 billion every single year, paid for by you. Now, the news comes as the Home Secretary today, Shabana Mahmood, laid out plans to tighten the immigration system in the House of Commons.
We will not change the rules for those with settled status today. These are people who have been in our country for years, even decades. They have families here, wives, husbands, children. They've worked in our hospitals, taught in our schools, and have been contributing to our society for years. Fairness is the most fundamental of British values. We made a promise when we gave them settlement, and we do not break our promises.
Brits may only get the benefits, but not will not. See the point? There's a big difference there. And that wasn't all. The ringleader of a Romanian grooming gang, a rape gang, was offered £1,500 by the Home Office in a so-called fee-to-flee deal. That's right. That's £150 payout for each rape. What sort of country is that? Well, we're going to speak now with our Home and Security Editor, Mark White. Mark, welcome to the show. A lot of tough talk from Shabana Mahmood today, looking every inch, I think, like a modern-day Priti Patel. But isn't that a parallel? They both talked a great fight, but when push came to shove, nothing changed.
Well, and this is it. Will the announcements that Shabana Mahmood had made in the Commons today stand the test of time? Now, given the reaction that we've already had to the announcement she made earlier in the week with regard to illegal migration and the asylum system, and the pushback that that is now getting from our own backbenchers, will these reforms actually make it anywhere near the statute books? Will we see, for instance, the additional 5 years, 10 years, 15 years that a migrant has to wait before they are given settled status, or indefinite leave to remain, we used to call it. But that settled status, she believes, should be earned, so that if you come to this country and you start claiming benefits, then not only will you have to wait now 10 years, as everybody coming to this country will have to do from the current 5 years, but you'll have to wait 15 years. And if you've actually been claiming benefits more than 12 months, she would like to see that extended to 20 years. But as I say, how will those backbenchers who could not stomach some of the changes that she wanted to implement with regard to illegal migration feel about changes that relate to legal migration?
Mark White, I put it to you, if you're one of those fellas on a dinghy, 20 years is, so what? If after 20 years you get a full state pension, if you get full NHS healthcare, that's worth waiting for. And even if you come over and you work, Chris Philp, I thought, was excellent in his response. He pointed out the salary threshold could be as low as £12,500 a year. That's basically slave labour. You're basically not really a net contributor to the economy. You could be a Deliveroo rider. You could be working part-time, and that would still qualify you for the indefinite leave to remain. I put it to you, this isn't a deterrent. It merely delays matters.
Yeah, listen, I don't think that, and I said this last hour as well, that what's being proposed today will be any kind of a deterrent to those that want to come across the English Channel or through whatever other route to the UK and effectively just start working, and potentially also scooping in the likes of various benefits that might be available to them as well. Now, what Shabana Mahmood is planning illegal immigration, those who break into the country across the Channel or by other means, is that they should wait 30 years before they are given indefinite leave to remain. But to echo your point, I don't think they give two hoots about what it's called. Just as long as they can stay, continue to work, and be able to funnel that money back to their own country, wherever they came from. That is what many of those who are coming, then claiming benefits, that are working either in the legal economy or the illegal economy, want to achieve at the end of the day, is to gather funds, send them back home to a country and a family network who are not as well off as someone coming here and working in the UK would be. And I don't think, as I say, they could give a damn whether they are refer to as someone with indefinite leave to remain or only temporary leave to remain, whether they are regarded as a British citizen or they're not. They just want to make money and send it home.
Mark White, I think you're exactly right, and there's still a huge amount of detail to pack through later on. There's still a fast-track scheme as well announced today. Hopefully I'll see you in Westminster, my friend, in a bit, and we'll get down to it then.
I'm on my way, Martin.
Beautiful then. See you soon. Let's get the Blanco Mobile waiting. Thank you very much. Now, joining me in the studio in Westminster is the chair of the Women's Policy Centre, Paola Diana. Paola, a pleasure to have your company in person. It's been too long. It's normally down the line. But look, on a serious point, I wanted to ask you about this so-called golden goodbye payments that were floated in the press today. At present, the British government can pay £3,000 for foreign criminals to leave. We saw with Hadush Kabatu, the Ethiopian rapist, got 500 quid to clear off back to his country. A case in today's press simply blew me away, and I know it's moved you too. A Romanian rapist who's raped 10 British women was offered £1,500 to leave the country. Why on earth should any taxpayer's money be going to criminals, let alone rapists?
I know, Martin, this is horrifying. When I was reading the news, I couldn't believe what I was reading. I mean, the Home Office officials who went to prison to propose this sum to this rapist should be held accountable. I don't think they should stay where they are. They're not fit for purpose. This is our hard-won money. We want to know who we are paying in this country. And it's not moral. I don't understand. I don't care if they say that it is strategic, this payment. This is not moral. This man, if he's going to be deported, should be deported, go to rot into a Romanian jail without any payment. He should be forced to do that.
Now, Paola Diana, this is echoing the Danish-style scheme. They do pay up to €24,000 to get rid of their worst, let's face it, garbage. And they say it's a price worth paying because it means that they won't be the bill for keeping them in British jails. There won't be the expense of the taxpayer. So perhaps £20,000 to get rid of the worst offenders might be better money spent in the short term as opposed to the long-term pain. Do you buy that? Or do you think a single penny shouldn't be going to these individuals?
I don't buy that. And I'm sorry, Martin, but we are not within the European Union anymore. So that's why we have to get out of the ACHR and all the laws that are forcing us to keep these people. We must deport them. And then we must close the borders, because if not, this rapist will start coming again. And we will offer them all these lovely benefits. We are offering them something similar to £85,000 per year to a family of illegal migrants who want to claim that they have anxiety and they cannot work. And two of them with children, £85,000. This is the reality of what's happening in this country. That's why they don't want to stay in France and in other European countries, because those countries, they're not offering the same benefits. So Britain is becoming a joke. Our money is just thrown away to all these criminals. This is immoral. This is not fair. This is a broken system, and we must stop it. So I can't wait for reform to win the next elections, as I hope they will, because only reform can change this broken system.
Well, to be fair, Shubhana Mahmood has said she will clamp down, but it's a key point to point out today that the next news cycle in this kind of raft of proposals will be this golden goodbye, and it is being proposed by the government. It could be as high as £20,000 to get rid of criminals. Paola Diana, thank you very, very much for joining us. Stick with us. I'm going to go to my next guest now, and that is the human rights lawyer, Dr. Shab Khan. Dr. Khan, it's always a pleasure to have your company. May I get your take first on the case we were just discussing here in the studio, the notion we've discussed before on the show of golden goodbye payments to criminals, in this case, a Romanian rapist who raped 10 British children and women. Surely we shouldn't be paying money and rewarding rapists.
I mean, I think it just comes down to, is money everything? Is that all we care about? The point is, if that wasn't all we cared about, then, I mean, I don't know how long this particular person is serving in jail, what's going to happen to him afterwards. But the point is, I mean, if you know, I just don't see what the 1,500 is supposed to do and what the point of doing that is. The point is, if someone is safe elsewhere and they can be sent back, then they're just sent back. Why are we trying to bribe him somehow, blackmail him, whatever the word is, to somehow give him this money? So I don't see the point of this money. And when it was, like you're mentioning Denmark, you're mentioning other countries that do that, they then give meaningful amounts of money. Okay, if we really need to persuade someone to leave, then we give someone, okay, you set up a business, you have some sort of safety back home, whatever you need to do. The point is, what's 1,500? I don't know where this person is from. Romania, maybe you said. What's 1,500 pounds going to do to them? So I just don't see what the point of this is.
Dr. Khan, I was on the verge there of thinking, wow, I agree with something you're saying on the show. But then you said, actually, no, they should get more. 1,500 quid won't get very far. This rapist should get 20 grand. Is that what you're seriously saying?
What I'm saying is that the point is, why are we trying to deport him? Is it genuinely a matter? Is it women's safety we're concerned about? Then how are Romanian women going to be safe? If it's not that, and it's more about why are we spending money on feeding him and keeping him in prison? But is that the point? Is it just about, then why are we spending more money, in fact, sending him back? So I just don't understand. So, of course, I take your point that money shouldn't be the only consideration we have. But yes, if we are going to actually try to, but do you think that, 1,500 pounds would persuade him? If he wasn't going to leave, then 1,500 makes any difference? I think that's just a pointless gesture. I just don't see the point of that.
OK, Dr. Khan, can I get your take on Shabana Mahmood's announcement today to lengthen the period it takes for citizenship, indefinite leave to remain in Britain? Do you think that's fair?
I don't know about fair. I think it's nonsense, really. I just don't understand what the point is. I think it's counterproductive, if anything. I don't think it's going to work. Like you were just discussing, I don't see as anyone, thinking of crossing the channel actually going to think, oh dear, if I had got my passport in 5 years, then it's worth the journey. But, I'm not going to wait 8 years or 10 years. I might as well go back to Afghanistan. No one's going to think that. I don't think that makes any sense. Hopefully one hopes even the government, Shabana Mahmood, knows it doesn't. But of course, she's got Reform UK to compete with, so she has to come up with something. But I don't really know. How does that make any sense? I think it's counterproductive because we keep complaining these people aren't integrating, and then we want them to keep them in limbo even longer. The point is, if they know after 6 years, 11 years, whatever, we are going to be British, they at least have a stake in this society. They're going to want to contribute. They know their children, their grandchildren are going to grow up in this country. And then we complain, oh, why are they earning here and sending money back home? Because that's where the future is. That's where they're going to retire. If they knew they were going to retire in this country, they'd want to save here. But otherwise, why wouldn't they want to? Why wouldn't they want to have a house to go back to in 5 or 10 or 20 years? Why wouldn't they have a business set up, something done? I think that's what all of us do if we're going somewhere to work temporarily, to the US, to the Middle East. Lots of people are leaving now.
The key difference, Dr. Khan, is if I go to Australia or if I go to America, I can't get a penny in benefits and I have to have private health insurance. And the notion of sending money back home, that's the point. They're being given money by the British state to filter it off back to their homeland so their family can enjoy a good life at the expense of the British taxpayer. And I put it to you, most of them won't ever go back. They get a nice state pension in Britain, and they'll get free health care until they pass away, all the while they won't be net contributors.
So the last point you made, that's the point I'm saying, if they aren't actually going to go back, then it's all gimmicks, isn't it? That's the point I'm making as well. What's the point of announcing this and keeping them in limbo and just continually, we keep saying they're not integrated, they're not interested in Britain, and we keep telling them, you're not British, you're a visitor here. What's the point? Don't we want to make them at least want them to integrate? And I think, if we actually tell them that you are British, in 5 years you will be British, that's actually the right thing to do.
OK, Dr. Shahab Khan, thanks for your company. It's always a pleasure to have you on the show. And thank you to Paola Diana, always a pleasure. Thank you both. Now it's time for the Great British Giveaway, and it's just 2 weeks left to grab your chance to enjoy Christmas on us at GB News this year. That's right, 40 grand in tax-free cash, shopping vouchers, and best of all, a GB News festive goodie bag. Here's the details for you to be our festive bumper winner.
It's just 2 weeks left to see how you could win your Christmas this year paid for by us. First, we'll give you an incredible £30,000 in tax-free cash so you can have a brilliant new year. Then we'll give you a further £10,000 cash to spend on all your Christmas presents, the decorations, even the tree. Christmas lunch, that's on us too, with £1,000 in shopping vouchers to spend at your favourite supermarket. Finally, a GB News Christmas goodie bag. And the best news? You'll get it all in time for the the big day. For another chance to win, text WIN to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message. Or text BONUS to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB17 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 28th of November. The winner may be contacted live on GB News, week commencing the 8th of December. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Still to come, it's decision day for Mr. Windsor, but will Andrew Mountbatten Windsor finally give evidence at the US Congress? The deadline is today. TikTok. This is GB News, Britain's #1 news channel.
Britain was once the envy of the world. But look around. A nation that no longer knows what it is or where it's going. A country that's broken. How do we fix Britain? How do we bring it back? Friday night with Matt Goodwin at 8 p.m. only on GB News.
Decisions made in Washington aren't just shaping America, they're shaping Britain too. From migration to global security, from crime to health. Whatever happens in the White House today
will be felt in your town or city tomorrow.
That's why The Late Show is live from Washington, D.C.
Cutting through the politics to show you what it all means for Britain.
The Late Show live every night at midnight.
Only on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
No matter the state it's in, this is our nation. Join me, Jacob Rees-Mogg, for a genuine, honest discussion on where we have been, where we are going, and where we are with the people who set the direction. Tune in to State of the Nation every Monday to Thursday, 8 to 9 o'clock. Only on GB News.
Britain deserves a newsroom that puts the facts and your voice first.
Well, and that's what you get on GB News. Lively debates, lively conversation.
And we're not afraid to hold power to account.
And each other. So join me, Andrew Pierce.
And me, Miriam Gates, for Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 on GB News.
Bold. They are under no illusion. Ray, are you a human trafficker? Boundless. I've had enough of the nonsense, and I'm not afraid to say it. Don't get us on the BBC. Every weeknight, I tear through the headlines. The smell of gasoline. Should we be worried about it? From Westminster madness to cultural war chaos. We're going to do now, they are throwing things up the car as we speak. Get ready, Britain. Here we go. Patrick Christie's tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation, isn't it?
No,
because the failure is
you're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Jubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
Welcome back. It's 3:28. I'm Martin Daubney, and this is GB News. Now, send your views and post your comments by visiting gbnews.com/your say. And here's a corker for you. Gerald on Your Says says this. I've asked an interesting question about today's announcements. Will we now see an upsurge in people getting settled status before this becomes law? I tell you what, Gerald, you can bet your life on it. There's bound to be a last-minute rush. It's always the same old story. Now, there's a brand new way to take part in the conversation by becoming a friend of GB News. It's completely and utterly free. Take a look.
Join the
the community and be part of our shows by becoming a friend of GB News. Get a direct line to join the conversations that you hear us talking about every day in our programmes by commenting on Your Say and voting in You Decide polls. Access opinion, analysis and behind-the-scenes videos as we share more from the stories that you see on TV and radio. Plus, watch our shows live and on catch-up anywhere, anytime. If you love our channel, become a friend of GB News for free by scanning the QR code or going to gbnews.com/friend. Don't just watch our programmes, come and be a part of them.
And who wouldn't want to be a friend with Michelle Dewberry? Go and get stuck in. Now, it's deadline day for Andrew Mountbatten Windsor, of course, formerly the Duke of York, was invited by US Congress, of course, to answer questions about his relationship with Jeffrey Epstein. Now, the committee investigating Epstein's crimes said that members want to speak to Andrew about the allegations made against him and what Andrew may have seen. But how likely is it that the former Duke will accept this invitation? Well, let's now speak with our royal correspondent, Cameron Walker. Cameron, the man who famously said he can't even sweat. I'm sure he might have a bit of a sweat on today. It's deadline day.
Well, quite possibly, Martin, but I think in a word, to sum up your question, unlikely, I think, that Prince Andrew is going to be sitting down for a formal transcribed interview with US lawmakers despite their request. Because, of course, Prince Andrew is a UK citizen. He doesn't live in the United States. He's not a United States citizen. So, therefore, he's not legally compelled to take part in any interview. Could he be extradited? Well, no, he can't, because he's not been charged with a criminal with a crime, and he is not subject to a criminal investigation within the United States. And of course, important to point out that Prince Andrew has denied all the allegations against him. But it is very much public knowledge, Martin, of course, that he had a friendship of some sort with Jeffrey Epstein, the convicted paedophile who was found dead in his jail cell in 2019. The coroner ruled it a suicide, and all of this, of course, happening, Martin, the day after that President Donald Trump ordered the Justice Department to release all the Epstein files, and that includes documents from the criminals investigation into Epstein's, transcripts from the interviews with victims and witnesses, items seized from his home during raids, flight logs. Of course, we know, Andrew Mountbatten Windsor had been on Epstein's private jet at certain times, and infos and entities connecting to Jeffrey Epstein. But when they say release all the files, Martin, there is perhaps a clause where that's not going to happen, because the Attorney General does have the power to keep some files classified if they identify a victim or if those files relate to an active investigation, an active federal investigation within the United States. Now, that is significant because, according to Republican Congressman Thomas Massey, it gives Trump the power to open up lots of federal investigations in order to some documents. So that particular Republican congressman is worried that President Trump may do that. But from Donald Trump's perspective, he's like, look, it's a Democrat problem. There aren't Republicans who are friends with Epstein. He says he fell out with Jeffrey Epstein in the early 2000s before he was convicted of any crimes. So nothing to do with me, Gov. It's all the Democrats' fault. So let's see if this story rumbles on. And we are expecting, of course, those files to be released in the next few hours.
Thank you, Cameron Walker. I'm still trying to unsee the notion of a painting of Bill Clinton in a dress and high heels. Huge amounts of information to come out of these Epstein files. Cameron Walker, thank you very much for joining us. Always a pleasure to have your company. Thank you. And lots more still to come between now and 4 p.m, including, could the SAS really take the government to court? Or the former SAS officer and the hero Matthew Hellier, who'll be joining me after the break. And take it from me, this guy is not to be messed with. But first, here's your latest news headlines, and it's Tatiana Sanchez.
Martin, thank you very much. The top stories. The Home Secretary has unveiled one of the most sweeping rewrites of the UK's migration rules in decades. Shabana Mahmood says there'll be tougher checks and longer waits for permanent settlement, affecting almost 2 million people. The COVID inquiry delivers its long-awaited verdict this afternoon, examining lockdown timing, government messaging and whether vulnerable groups were protected. More than 160 witnesses, including Boris Johnson, have given evidence. Former Met officer David Carrick has been jailed for life again, this time with a 30-year minimum term for abusing a 12-year-old girl and raping a partner. Already serving dozens of life sentences for 71 previous offences, he was branded a manipulative predator who hid behind his warrant card. And heavy snow has forced hundreds of schools to close across the UK after England, Wales and Northern Ireland had their coldest night of autumn. Amber warnings remain for some, with up to 25 centimetres of snow and even so-called thunder snow possible. And those are the headlines for now. More at the top of the hour.
Take the GB News family with you on any device. As long as you have an internet connection, tune into GB News anywhere on the planet or beyond.
Hi there, welcome to the latest update from the Met Office for GB News. Certainly feels cold out there, particularly in the wind towards the northeast. The wind's coming from the Arctic at the moment, bringing showers for some, but actually dry, bright weather for many. And the showers will ease during the rest of the day, leading to a period of weather in which it's cold but dry. And the main hazard overnight becomes ice because of the showers that we've seen across the north, the east, into Northern Ireland, these western fringes of West Wales as well as Cornwall. Well, there'll be some slippery surfaces where we've seen these showers coming through, where temperatures fall overnight, because it's going to be a widely frosty one. Temperatures dipping -2 to -6 Celsius widely, below -10 Celsius for some snow-covered parts of Scotland. So a freezing start to the day on Friday, but a bright start. So there'll be some fog patches here and there, but plenty of sunshine for Scotland. Fewer showers for sure compared with the last few days. Northern Ireland likewise, clear blue skies in the morning, the best period of weather for Northern Ireland Friday morning. And then for England and Wales, plenty of sunshine, but there will be some areas of cloud, particularly for the Midlands into the southeast, and also some fog patches, particularly towards the west. Still 1 or 2 showers running in from the North Sea coast, but these are going to fade through the day, leading to plenty of dry and bright weather, and after that icy start in places, it's a fine day for the vast majority. It's going to feel cold though, 5 or 6 Celsius in many places, and where we've got some snow cover staying below freezing. But it is turning milder, a change on the way. I think for Scotland and Northern Ireland it turns cloudier through the afternoon, and then we've got these outbreaks of rain pushing into western Scotland, arriving into Northern Ireland by the evening, and they topple in across the whole of the country during Saturday, marking a change to wetter, windier, but also less cold weather this weekend.
Thank you, Britain, for making us the fastest growing news website in the nation, because the truth matters, and so do you.
Good afternoon. This is the latest AI travel news from GBnews.com. Expect disruptions on the A5 between Carrog and Glyndifrdwy, closed due to an incident. In Milton Keynes, an overturned vehicle has closed a lane on the M1 southbound at junction 14. Normal traffic is expected after 4:15. On the A34 southbound in Hampshire, congestion leads to 15-minute delays. All lanes are shut on the A36 southbound in Wiltshire due to a collision. And on the trains, Avanti West Coast reports major disruption at Glasgow Central, affecting routes between Lancaster and Oxenholme Lake District, and Northern warns of disruption on various routes. For more travel news, go to gbnews.com.
Welcome back. Time is 3:38. With me, Martin Daubney, here on GB News. Now, veterans are up in arms with SAS representatives warning that Labour's new Troubles bill could drag elderly former soldiers back into court. This scandal has been rolling on for years and years and years, and they say that the plan strips away vital safeguards and opens the door to endless legal battles. But now they're gearing up for a full-scale legal fight, and trust me, these boys know how to fight. Let's now speak with the SAS veteran, the officer, the hero, Matthew Hellier. Matthew, it's always a pleasure to have your company. We've had this conversation so many times, both on the show and in person. SAS veterans being hounded for decades, way after what you perceive as them simply following orders. And Matthew Hellier, you boys know how to fight. Now you're taking your legal fight potentially to court.
Well, let's hope so. It's
Martin, it's about time our officers and our military associations started sticking up for themselves. In the past, the comment is that we don't comment about Special Forces soldiers. What is happening, this government is not only persecuting British soldiers, but it has a personal vendetta against the Special Air Service. These are the soldiers that put their lives on the line on a daily basis to ensure we have freedom, we can get on and do our day-to-day business. Now they're getting persecuted, and it's not current, it's 40, 50 years ago. Some of our friends, they're living in fear about a knock on the door from the police, getting charged with stupid crimes that should have been wiped away years ago. And the association, rightly so, have stood up and said, right, this is illegal. This is illegal. Keep persecuting us. You're going against the Armed Forces Covenant, something that the government and everyone else has signed up to, which says that they cannot disadvantage military veterans. What they're doing now, they're not just disadvantaging us, they're persecuting us. They're hunting us down. For what? Because we went to war on behalf of them and the government's successive governments.
Matthew Harrier has always struck me as an outsider, as an historic injustice, that while the SAS veterans have been pursued in this manner, the IRA, on the other hand, were basically given a legal waiver. How does that make you and your colleagues in the forces feel? It's clearly you're being treated here as the foe, not the friend.
Yeah, you're right. It's not just me. My comrades in the SAS and the military, it's the general public are now sick of this government. They're hunting us down for some reason. The IRA, how many IRA members or members of terrorist organisations have been prosecuted in this way? And I can tell you now, it's zero. How many soldiers and SAS guys are under charge now, under some sort of charge? Lots of them at the moment, and there's more to come. As we know, a couple of weeks ago, there was a knock on the door for 2 serving SAS soldiers that were charged with murder. This is ongoing. There is a clear persecution against us. There is a personal hatred that Mr. Starmer and his human rights lawyers have against the SAS. We're the ones that made sure that he could earn his money through the courts. We should be respected.
And the Special Air Service Regimental Association, as you said, it's written this legal letter to Hilary Benn. He's, of course, the President's Northern Ireland Secretary, warning that this legislation does not provide adequate safeguards for veterans. And the warning is stark. We should make it clear that our client's current position is that if the bill is enacted in anything like its current state, it will be subject to challenge. Matthew Harrier, it's astonishing that the SAS, of all people, should be pushed to the point where they're taking the government to court. Nothing like this has ever happened in British regimental or legal history.
Martin, it's shameful. Why are we having to put these bills in place to protect our veterans that were sent to war by politicians? Ben and those left-wing cronies have got to stop it. They are hunting us down. They are ruining this nation, this British Army, the Special Air Service. They're ruining everything that is British about us. We have lost faith in this government, and we're losing faith in this system. I have law firms speaking to me on a daily basis who are giving their time pro rata to serve our Special Air Service soldiers to ensure that they are not disadvantaged. They are given a fair trial and a fair crack at life after they've served this country, rather than being persecuted by Ben, Starmer and the Labour government.
And Matthew Harrier, as well as those past and present, we've spoken before about the tragic effect this is having on recruitment. Who joined a regiment that feels that the government hasn't got its back?
This is having a massive effect. Recruitment and retention now. We run courses for serving soldiers and people getting out. There is hordes of people leaving the military because they do not have faith in this government and the protection that they will have when they come back from war zones. We are really striving to try and get some positivity out of the military now. We're creating a veterans group, as I've told you before, that is going to look after our veterans, create policies and ensure that we are legally protected. And this is backed by the Reform, this is backed by Conservatives, and the only people that are hating us and persecuting us are the Labour government. It must stop, and it's got to stop now. It's having catastrophic effects on our life and the life of great British people.
Matthew, may I ask you a personal question? When you and I last met on Remembrance Sunday, we were very moved, the pair of us, by that 100-year-old plus veteran who spoke about so emotively about what has become of this country, the country I fought for. You personally, as an SAS veteran, your comrades as SAS veterans, how does this make you feel? What do you think about what our country has become, Matthew?
It's not the country that I signed up to serve under. I served under Queen and Country. Would I sign up again? No, not a chance. I would not serve under Starmer's government. Although I'd say I serve under the Crown and I serve for my people to the left and the right of me. But these politicians that are sending me into war, and then when I come back, they're prosecuting me, they're ruining my life and putting me potentially in a prison, leaving my children, my wife, my family to fend for themselves. Why on earth would you sign up to fight for this government? We must get rid of this government. It is ruining this country. It is absolutely tearing us apart.
Okay, Matthew Hellier, we have to leave it there. Thank you. Solemn words, but thank you, as ever, for joining us on GB News. Matthew Hellier, thank you. Now, a government spokesperson has told GB News this. After the false promises of the last government, we are putting in place 6 real workable protections for veterans that the failed Legacy Act never did. We will not allow the process, like so many times before, to become the punishment for our veterans. And they continue. These robust safeguards will ensure the rights of those who serve their nation so honourably are protected, whilst providing victims with a human rights compliant, fair and transparent system to seek answers. And meanwhile, if you search some holiday sun this year, then here is the forecast for some of the top European destinations.
Ready to soak up that holiday sunshine?
Won't we need some cover?
No worries, all sorted.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Hello, some drier weather for Portugal over the next few days. Rain will affect parts of the Canaries, in particular Tenerife through Friday. Highs of 19 degrees with overcast skies. Lisbon looking nice and dry, just 10 degrees though, so still fairly chilly. Now the remnants of Storm Claudia moving into the Mediterranean, bringing some persistent wet weather through Friday and into the weekend as well. But if we look to Tenerife, it is looking much drier and brighter by Monday. Bye-bye.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Britain was once the envy of the world. But look around. A nation that no longer knows what it is or where it's going. A country that's broken. How do we fix Britain? How do we bring it back? Friday night with Matt Goodwin at 8 p.m. only on GB News.
GB News Breakfast, every day from 6 a.m.
That's right. I mean, the rifts can last a lifetime. And that's because the event is so emotional. We see it at funerals and we see it at weddings in particular. That idea that what you've got is a fight for territory, really, a fight for possession. And particularly when one particular child is moving into another family, that can stir up a lot of angst for the parent, for that generation. And things get said and things get seen, slights get perceived, and before you know it, you've got a full-blown crisis. But there have been stories around who gets to go for a hen party, for example. And I think it's very unusual to have an intergenerational hen party. Who wants to have their mother, hen parties?
My mum wasn't at my hen party. She wouldn't want to be.
The thing is, they get quite
drunk.
They get quite lewd. And would you want your future mother-in-law to watch you play some variant of pinning the appendage on whatever? So I think there are reasons why you don't invite everybody. But then who gets the territory. I think if you can be much more magnanimous and accept that it isn't about losing a child but gaining a family, then you can have a very different mindset.
It's interesting, though, because just by raising all of that, there's a lot of focus on saying, well, Adam Peaty has uninvited his mother. But this, whatever the tension, it must be from both sides, presumably.
Yeah. That's right. And nobody will really know what it's about because they themselves will probably not know what it's about. And it may actually be about things historically that are now being brought up into the surface. But we see it at Christmas as well. In the run-up to Christmas, there will be tensions about who gets to go where on the day.
GB News, the People's Channel.
No matter the state it's in, this is our nation. Join me, Jacob Rees-Mogg, for a genuine, honest discussion on where we have been, where we are going, and where we are with the people who set the direction. Tune in to State of the Nation every Monday to Thursday, 8 to 9 o'clock. Only on GB News.
Britain deserves a newsroom that puts the facts and your voice first.
Well, and that's what you get on GB News. Lively debates, lively conversation.
And we're not afraid to hold power to account.
And each other. So join me, Andrew Pierce.
And me, Miriam Cates, for Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 on GB News.
Welcome back. Your time is 10 to 4. You have me, Martin Daubney, on GB News. Now, GB News has been granted exclusive access inside America's war on illegal immigration as Ben Leo joined US immigration officers on a dawn raid in Florida. It's dramatic stuff, and take a look.
So I reckon it's been quite a successful morning here in southwest Florida. We haven't got the main target, who was a Guatemalan guy accused of international cocaine smuggling, but they pulled over 2 vehicles in 2 separate stops, and they got 6 illegal migrants out of the country. So they weren't the main priority. One guy here being loaded into the car. So the search goes on for the international cocaine smuggler. But yes, as I said, 6 illegal migrants rounded up, alleged illegal migrants. They did AI facial recognition checks, and it's pretty much confirmed they shouldn't be in the country. They'll be detained, they'll be processed, they'll be kicked out. Is this the kind of thing we need in the UK? Roadside stops, a bit of action, a bit of intent, because at the moment we're putting them in hotels, giving them bus passes, giving them days out to Arsenal games, NHS dentistry. Is this what you want to see instead?
Yeah, it's a dramatic raid. I think that's the big question. Would you like to see those kind of raids in Britain? I think a lot of people watching the show would welcome the local Turkish barber shop or vape shop or dodgy mobile phone shop having an ICE-style raid, seeing some boots through doors. We need a bit more of it, I think. If you want to see the full package, it's a dramatic package. You can. Of course, you can get more from Ben and Bev on The Late Show Live tonight on GB News exclusively. And that's, of course, at midnight. And I've got to say, I don't think Ben Leo's done himself any harm there with his lady fans, looking very debonair and swish in his stab-proof jacket. Late Show Live, midnight on GB News. Now, I've got a few your says here, what you've been getting in touch about during the show on the topic, of course, of the SAS taking the government to court. An astonishing situation. Andy says this: I feel so sorry for Matthew Herrier, the SAS veteran. People who serve this country being treated like this, it's simply not on. Alex adds this: I remember the Troubles very well. Honestly, I think it's time that we forgive and forget, even on both sides. Pragmatic view there from Alex. And Megan adds this: I wonder just how many people are going to suddenly apply for settled status before the deadline hits. Megan, I think you got a great point. And that was my point earlier on. Is this really a deterrent, what Shabana Mahmood announced today in the Commons, or merely a delaying tactic? And I put it to you, if you're coming from around the world, you'll be prepared to wait 10, 15 years longer for NHS treatment for life and unlimited pension. Now, lots more coming up in today's show, including a jaw-dropping interview with a very, very brave lady at 5:30 p.m, a woman who survived a sexual assault from a Syrian immigrant. A credible story. That's next, but first is your weather with Aidan McGibbon.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Box Boilers sponsors the weather on GB News.
Hello and welcome to the latest update from the Met Office for GB News. It is a cold day for all of us today with Arctic winds across the country, bright skies for most, but for some, further wintry scenes. We've seen snow affecting parts of northeast England, northern Scotland and some locations in Pembrokeshire even. And we'll continue to see showers move in during the rest of Thursday across parts of Northern Ireland, northern Scotland, eastern Scotland into northeast and eastern England, as well as the southwest. Those showers around coasts falling as rain and sleet, but inland and over higher ground, further snow to come. The showers tending to ease off later. In between, some bright skies, some decent sunshine, although continuing to feel cold with that Arctic wind. And overnight, the main issue will be icy patches because we'll have further showers coming in to northern Scotland, for example, giving some slippery surfaces and further snow accumulations over hills. Those showers easing off a little for Northern Ireland, but still some around to cause some icy issues first thing Friday. Likewise for West Wales into Cornwall, but for much of the rest of Wales and the southwest of England, as well as a broad central part of the UK, it's simply a clear and in places frosty night, although there'll be an increase in cloud cover across the east of England, mitigating against hard frost here. But those showers will continue across parts of eastern England, and again, likewise here, we're going to see some icy patches first thing Friday. So yeah, slippery surfaces first thing, frosty, temperatures below -10 Celsius, where we've got snow cover across parts of Highland Scotland. And that cold feel continues through the day, but the one difference is that the showers will have mostly gone. Plenty of sunshine out and about. Some rain moving into the northwest of Scotland, marking a change to milder and wetter for the weekend.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Box Boilers sponsors the weather on GB News.
Thank you, Britain, for our more than 2 million YouTube subscribers and more than 2 billion views. That is Britain watching, sharing and making its voice heard louder than ever before.
Good afternoon, this is the latest AI travel news from GBNews.com. A significant incident has closed the A5 from Carrog to Glindy-Furdwy. In East Riding of Yorkshire, a breakdown on the A63 westbound has closed one lane. In Staffordshire, a lane is closed on the M6 southbound due to a breakdown between junctions 13 and 12. An accident on the A36 southbound in Wiltshire has closed all lanes. Hampshire faces congestion on the A34 southbound with 20-minute delays expected. And on the trains, Avanti West Coast faces major disruption between Glasgow Central and Lancaster, with additional issues to Oxenholme Lake District. For more travel news, go to gbnews.com.
There's just 2 weeks left to see how you could win your Christmas this year paid for by us. First, we'll give you an incredible £30,000 in tax-free cash. Then we'll give you a further £10,000 cash to spend on all your Christmas presents, even the tree. Christmas lunch, that's on us too, with £1,000 in shopping vouchers to spend at your favourite supermarket. Finally, a GB News Christmas goodie bag. For another chance to win, text WIN to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message, or text BONUS to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge, or post your name and number to GB17 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 28th of November. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand.
Exciting news. Every Friday, my Patrick Christie's Tonight Show is going to have a twist to it. We're welcoming some special guests. You. That's right, on Fridays I'm going to be doing my show in front of a live studio audience, because this show is about you and what you have to say. It's going to be the same big debates, same big topics, same big opinions, but every Friday night at 9 p.m. you are invited to come on down to Patrick Christie's Tonight to be a part of the action. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation, isn't it?
No,
Because the failure is
you're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back,
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
and we do not shy away from the difficult stuff.
Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood.
So join me on Jubes & Co weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Deserves a newsroom that puts the facts and your voice first.
Well, and that's what you get on GB News. Lively debates, lively conversation.
And we're not afraid to hold power to account.
And each other. So join me, Andrew Pearce.
And me, Miriam Cates, for Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 on GB News.
Very, very good afternoon to you. It's 4 p.m. and welcome to the Martin Daubney Show here on GB News, broadcasting live across the UK, all the very latest news, debates and analysis all the way through until 6 p.m. And here's what's coming up on today's action-packed show. An astonishing 500 immigrants are signing on to benefits every single day, with 1.3 million foreigners now on universal credit. And that costs you, the British taxpayers, an astonishing £10 billion a year. But today in the House of Commons, Shabana Mahmood said this.
Specifically, it proposes that benefits might not be available to those who have settled status, reserving them instead for those who have earned British citizenship.
The benefits may be reserved for Brits only, but she stopped short of a reform-style total ban on benefits for immigrants. And meanwhile, Shabana Mahmood is also considering a so-called big increase in golden goodbye payments for illegal immigrants. Well, the current £3,000 maximum could go as high as 20 grand. Now, with a Romanian who raped 10 British women being offered £1,500 to flee the country, is it time to axe these payments? And could Britain really become a banana republic? Well, Alistair Heath of The Telegraph puts the chance of Britain going bananas at 75%. And he'll be joining me in the studio to explain. And also on today's show, we'll be joined by an astonishingly brave lady, Pauline Wally, a woman who is living in fear after being attacked by a Syrian immigrant while simply doing her job. This is a shocking story and you'll not want to miss her incredible break. Shabana Mahmood is making something of a name of herself for talking tough on immigration, a modern-day Priti Patel, almost the Iron Lady of immigration, something no doubt that would offend her being compared to Margaret Thatcher. But beyond the bluster, is there any substance? Today we heard that benefits may be for Brits only, but we weren't told they definitely would be. Will today's plans simply delay people's ability to become a citizen rather than deter them altogether? Is it more hot air from the Labour Party? And more to the point, do you agree with the idea that £20,000 of your money could be paid to illegal immigrants to deport them? Why are they getting a single penny of British money to get out of the country, including one astonishing story today, a Romanian rapist who raped 10 British women and girls, often £1,500 to get out of the country? Is that how you want your taxpayers' money to be spent? Get in touch. GBNews.com/your say is the way to do so. But now it's time for your headlines, and here's Tatiana Sanchez.
Martin, thank you very much and good afternoon. The top story, some breaking news this hour. Chaos at the heart of government and a failure to take COVID-19 seriously cost 23,000 lives in the first wave of the pandemic. A public inquiry has concluded this afternoon. The UK COVID-19 inquiry says the government response to the pandemic in March of 2020 was too little, too late. It says imposing lockdown a week earlier could have saved 23,000 lives in England. The inquiry also says lockdown could have been avoided altogether if steps such as social distancing and isolating those with symptoms had been introduced earlier. Elsewhere, the Home Secretary has unveiled one of the most sweeping rewrites of the UK's migration rules in decades, warning that years of rapid arrivals have destabilised communities. Shabana Mahmood says settlement will no longer be automatic, with tougher checks, longer waits and new expectations on English, tax contributions and criminal records. It means almost 2 million people who migrated legally to Britain since 2021 will now need to have been in the UK for 10 years instead of 5 in order to be considered for permanent settlement. But the opposition mocked the announcement, with Shadow Home Secretary Chris Philp joking that Labour had simply borrowed Conservative policy and rebranded it as their own.
There is much in this statement I support, not least because so much of it is so familiar. So I am delighted, Madam Deputy Speaker, to see that the Shadow Home Secretary, upon arrival at number 2 Marsham Street, has got out the copy and paste function on her laptop and started copying and pasting conservative policies.
Shabana Mahmood hit back, insisting the Tories lost the right to lecture anyone after presiding over record migration and what she called an open border experiment.
Given their current track record, they barely have the right to ask questions, let alone propose solutions. Like settlement, it's my view that you have to earn the right to offer solutions, and I would say to him, one way of earning that right would be to apologise for what the Tories did first and foremost.
In other news, the government's under fire over Britain's defence readiness after the sighting of a Russian spy ship off Scotland, and claims the UK defences are still dangerously exposed. Shadow Defence Secretary James Cartledge blasted what he called Labour's glacial pace on strengthening security, warning the Yantar's laser attack on RAF pilots marks a serious escalation. But Defence Minister Alistair Cairns hit back, accusing the Conservatives of leaving Britain's armed forces decrepit. He said the Yantar will not go unchallenged, with the Navy and RAF tracking its every move, and warned Russia that any attempt to interfere with UK undersea infrastructure would be met with the firmest response.
The Yantar has once again been operating in and around the UK's EEZ for the second time this year. During this time, she was continuously monitored by Royal Navy frigate HMS Somerset and the RAF's P8s. We will ensure that the Yantar is not able to conduct its mission unchallenged or untracked. But this has not been without difficulties.
Now, after one of the most shocking police abuse cases in UK history, David Carrick has been jailed for life again, this time with a 30-year minimum term for molesting a 12-year-old girl and raping a former partner. The ex-armed Met officer, already serving dozens of life sentences for 71 previous sex offences, was convicted of 5 indecent assaults on a child in the late 1980s and rape and coercive control against a woman he terrorised for years. Jurors saw a handwritten confession signed Dave and heard how his later victim said he ruined her life. Prosecutors called him a manipulative predator who hid behind his warrant card. Detectives say these new convictions finally give his victims a voice and warn that if his confession had been acted on back in 1990, many more women could have been protected. President Donald Trump has reportedly approved a secret 28-point peace approval drawn up with Russia, a plan that Ukraine wasn't involved in. American military officials are now heading to Kyiv to restart talks, as leaks claim the proposal would force Ukraine to give up the entire Donbass, cap its long-range weapons and even limit the size of its military. Kyiv says those demands would be outright capitulation after Moscow pushed similar terms before. The US State Department won't comment, and Secretary of State Marco Rubio hasn't addressed the reports directly, but says both sides need realistic ideas if talks are ever going to move. And the UK has shivered through its coldest night so far, with temperatures sinking well below freezing across all 4 nations, down to -6 in Cumbria and -5 in Wales. Yellow warnings for snow and ice stretch across much of the country, and there's an amber alert for North Yorkshire, where up to 25 centimetres of snow could fall on higher ground. Forecasters say some could even see thunder snow later, rare winter thunderstorms with heavy, fast-falling snow. Around 100 schools in northern Scotland are closed as snow and ice bring further disruption across the area. And those are the latest GB News headlines. For now, more from me in half an hour.
Cheers Britannia Wine Club proudly sponsors the GB News Financial Report.
And here's a quick snapshot of the markets. The pound buying you $1.3062 and €1.1346. The price of gold, £3,127.37 per ounce. And the FTSE 100 is at 9,550 points.
Cheers Britannia Wine Club proudly sponsors the GB News Financial Report.
Here's a question for you. Is Britain starting to resemble just one massive cash machine? Well, as record numbers of immigrants are claiming universal credit payments, that seems to be the situation. Last month, 472 immigrants every single day began claiming universal credit, while the overall number of foreign nationals receiving it rose to an astonishing 1.3 million. That's an increase of 6.7% in a year. And the bill? Well, it's over £10 billion a year, paid for by you, the great British taxpayer. Now, this comes as today the Home Secretary Shabana Mahmood laid out plans to tighten the immigration system in the House of Commons.
We will not change the rules for those with settled status today. These are people who have been in our country for years, even decades. They have families here, wives, husbands, children. They've worked in our hospitals, taught in our schools, and have been contributing to our society for years. Fairness is the most fundamental of British values. We made a promise when we gave them settlement, and we do not break our promises.
But that wasn't all, because the ringleader of a Romanian rape gang was offered £1,500 by the Home Office in a so-called fee-to-flee deal. Think about that. That's £150 per rape. And is that a taste of things to come, with the Home Secretary Shabana Mahmood today announcing to the BBC she's considering hiking those fees to as much as £20,000 to illegal immigrants to flee the country. Astonishing stuff, and I'm joined in the studio in Westminster by our Home and Security Editor, Mark White. Mark, welcome to Westminster. Always a pleasure. Let's start first with today's announcement. I put it to you, this won't deter anybody coming to Britain. It will simply delay their path to citizenship and untold benefits.
I think you're right. I don't think that really in the calculation of those that are coming here that maybe, you know, they want to work, they want to earn money. Many of them want to send it back to the wider family back in their home country. And for them, you know, whether they are given permanent settlement right away or they have to wait an extra 5 or 10 years, I don't think really matters at the end of the day. We're told that if you claim benefits, for instance, you'll have to wait another 5 years on top of the 10 years that you're now going to have to wait for settlement anyway. If you've been claiming benefits for more than 12 months, it'll actually be 10 years. It could be 20 years before you get that permanent settlement. But I think the calculation with a lot of these migrants will be, well, am I still here? Am I still allowed to work? Am I still earning the money that I can send back home if that's the intention?
Am I still getting free healthcare? Will I still get a free pension?
Yeah. And, you know, you get benefits as well. If there is a danger of you becoming destitute, it's a calculation, then you get benefits, which is why, of course, they're saying if you've claimed benefits beforehand, there'll be a penalty, because the way Shabana Mahmood sees this, it's all about earning your leave to remain, your permanent leave to remain here. But as I say, I'm not convinced it's as important as the government is making it out in the minds of many migrants. Yes, of course, there are those that do want to come here, that want that permanent settlement, that want British citizenship at the end of the day. But I think there's many more that want to come here and work for however long they need to do that before then potentially going back home.
Another idea that's been flown today, this notion of a big increase, that's the quote, in the payments to deportees, the so-called golden goodbye payments. To get out of the country, we want you gone. Of course, Hadush Kabatu, the Ethiopian child sex offender, he got £500 to clear off home. And this case out today, a Romanian rapist, 10. He was a rapist of 10, awaiting trial. He was offered £1,500 to leave the United Kingdom. It's an incredible thing to think that criminals, rapists, are being paid by the British taxpayer.
Yeah, listen, this understandably is an area that most people find completely unpalatable. You've got an argument purely on monetary grounds coming from the government and indeed the Home Secretary saying that, look, to keep a migrant in this country, be they an illegal migrant or a visa overstay or what they are, is 30,000 a year. Well, actually, it's a lot more than that. So mathematically, even if it's £20,000, then the calculation mathematically makes sense. But who wants to see people that are arriving in this country either illegally or are staying in this country illegally or who've committed offences in this country and are being deported, effectively rewarded for that, just so they go quietly, so that they don't resist the government's attempts to deport them, and up to £20,000. That will stick in the throats of so many people that see these migrants being rewarded for that, because £20,000 is a lot to many people in this country. It's an absolute fortune to people in many other impoverished parts of the world.
You're exactly right, Mark White. Thank you very much. Stick with us. We'll get to my next guest now, if I could. I'm speaking with the Labour MP for Derby North, and that's Katherine Atkinson. Katherine, welcome to the show. It's a pleasure to have your company as ever. Katherine, Shabana Mahmood doing her very best today to channel her inner Nigel Farage, trying to appear like the Iron Lady of immigration, but it falls apart upon analysis. This won't deter anybody coming to Britain. It will simply delay them getting citizenship, and that's a gamble they're prepared to take at the expense of the British taxpayer.
I think our Home Secretary is an incredibly capable and effective woman, and I think that she is trying to build upon the work that has already been done, because I completely believe that we are a fair and tolerant country, but there needs to be further work done to ensure that we have control and order at our borders. So I think that progress has been made in terms of significantly speeding up the processing of asylum claims, which is why we have seen the backlog come down, which is why we've seen 50,000 people who have no right to be here deported. And the crackdown that we've seen on illegal working, I think, is crucial, because people smugglers are telling people that they can come here and work illegally, and that is why it's absolutely crucial that we have that crackdown, and those raids are now at record highs. But I do think it's essential that further is done, and I think that's exactly what Shabana has been setting out. And I think you've been talking about the earned settlement, and ensuring that if you have refugee status but you are a skilled frontline worker, then you will be able to have settled status sooner. But if you have come illegally, or if you are overstaying a visa, then it will take far, far longer. And I think that actually having that earned settlement would be a step in the right direction, and would be something that is far fairer.
OK, Katherine Atkinson. I'm also joined in the studio by Mark White, our Home and Security Editor. He has a question for you.
Katherine, you very proudly told us about the 50,000 people that have been removed from the country under Labour. Can you tell us how many of those were small boat migrants?
I think we've got to make sure we get through the backlog, but we also have to have fewer people coming. So I think that it's absolutely important that we saw the move away from not only the hundreds of millions being wasted on Rwanda, but all of that effort for no reason, when you only saw 4 volunteers go.
I get that, but how many of the 50,000 removed, Katherine, how many of the 50,000 removed were small boat migrants?
I don't know, but I think that what's important is we get
You
through
don't
that
know,
backlog.
and the government doesn't want to tell us, because actually it's a minuscule number. The vast majority of people they're removing are low-hanging fruit, those who are visa overstayers, people that they give money to often to go quietly. Isn't that the truth of it?
I think that we have to ensure that those who have
OK, we've lost Katherine Atkinson's sound there. But anyway, let's move on, because we've got some breaking news now, and it's this. Finally, the COVID lockdown inquiry has been published. And guess what? Lockdowns could have been avoided entirely during the pandemic had ministers reacted more quickly to the emerging threat of the virus. The COVID-19 inquiry has concluded. We'll try and get Katherine Atkinson back on that point, because don't forget, it was Keir Starmer in opposition who wanted lockdowns sooner, harder and longer. More of all the above. The COVID inquiry has said today lockdowns could have been avoided entirely during the pandemic had ministers reacted more quickly to the emerging threat of the virus. And that's the COVID-19 inquiry just been published. Mark White, let's get your take on that. A lot of people, you and I sat through endless rafts of evidence, some very fruity stuff from the likes of Dominic Cummings, and I was shouting at the screen all the time, why aren't you asking the question? Why did we even have these punishing lockdowns that have annihilated the economy, broken mental health, killed businesses? And we were called conspiracy theorists for saying that. And look, the inquiry has concluded today. Lockdowns could have been avoided entirely.
Yes, and remember, of course, the police were used as an arm of the state to enforce these lockdowns as well. You had the ridiculous situation of people going for a walk in the open countryside in the north of the country, being surveilled by police drones that were up, people that found themselves in trouble for going out and about in public areas where you are obviously in the open air going to stand much less prospect of coming in contact with an airborne contagion than you are if you're out in the countryside. But yes, the government reacted, and it certainly, fed off the information it was getting from its own scientific advisors, and they had advised throughout that we need to go, harder and faster to lock down the population.
And just getting fresh information coming in here, Mark White. So Baroness Hallett, who's the inquiry chairman, chairwoman, chairperson, chair they, them, who knows these days, says that if stringent restrictions had been put in place before March the 16th, 2020, of course that was the date of the first lockdown, then there might have been no need for lockdown. So they're basically saying here, if they'd been stricter before lockdowns, we wouldn't have needed lockdowns, which I think feels like a bit of a reverse ferret.
Yeah, or they're softening us up for the next major crisis when they need to go tougher, quicker. But yeah, I get, at the end of the day, it was a global pandemic that took so many governments around the world by surprise. But there were some governments that decided not to be as draconian in the measures that they implemented and seemed to do quite well out of it regardless. The pandemic actually passed through their population quicker, but it was all about that mantra of protect the NHS, but at the expense of school children not being able to go to school, the elderly in care homes who were then subject to people coming out of the hospital and shoved into their care homes, who then infected those care homes, and these elderly, vulnerable and frail people died off at a rate of knots as well.
And the conclusion here, the report is saying a toxic and chaotic culture at the centre of the government meant the pandemic response was often too little, too late, meaning a lockdown became inevitable. So it sounds like more bad news here for Boris Johnson's Conservative government getting the brunt of it here. Isn't it funny, though, how none of the governments present or at the time have admitted the huge economic annihilation that lockdowns cause? They blame Brexit, they blame everything but their own actions. And this report today concluding lockdowns could have been avoided entirely. They should all look themselves in the mirror and think about that, the untold damage been done to business, to mental health, to the fabric of the nation, to cultural cohesion, societal cohesion, and the annihilation of our economy. The whole thing could have been avoided. A few of us said it all along and we were called mad. Thank you very much. Now let's move on. Time for the Great British Giveaway now. And there's just 2 weeks left to grab your chance to enjoy Christmas honours this year at GBNews. That's right, 40 grand in tax-free moolah, shopping vouchers, and best of all, a GBNews festive goodie bag that even Mark White can't buy. Here's the details you'll need to enter.
We could be delivering the perfect Christmas to you this year with your chance to win everything you need to celebrate the festivities. There's £30,000 in tax-free cash to make 2026 the best year yet. A further £10,000 cash to spend on gifts for all the family. There's £1,000 to spend in your favourite supermarket. Christmas lunch is on us. And a festively themed GB News goodie bag, and we'll get it all to you in time for the big day. For another chance to win, text WIN WIN to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message. Or text BONUS to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB17 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 28th of November. The winner may be contacted live on GB News, week commencing the 8th of December. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Coming up next, why has President Donald Trump decided to U-turn and order the House of Republicans to release the Epstein files? What will it contain? Could contain an oil painting of Bill Clinton in a dress and high heels. Chilling thought. We're crossing stateside to get the latest from the political commentator Nigel Aspen. That's next with me, Martin Daubney, on GB News, with Britain's #1 news channel.
Join me, Nana Akweer, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, though.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk now?
No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
In fact, has Trump made a good start? No.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints.
How many fingers have I got up? About 10.
So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m. only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Britain was once the envy of the world. But look around. A nation that no longer knows what it is or where it's going. A country that's broken. How do we fix Britain? How do we bring it back? Friday night with Matt Goodwin at 8 p.m. only on GB News.
Decisions made in Washington aren't just shaping America, they're shaping Britain too. From migration to global security, from crime to health. Whatever happens in the White House today
will be felt in your town or city tomorrow.
That's why The Late Show is live from Washington, D.C.
Cutting through the politics to show you what it all means for Britain.
The Late Show live every night at midnight.
Only on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
No matter the state it's in, this is our nation. Join me, Jacob Rees-Mogg, for a genuine, honest discussion on where we have been, where we are going, and where we are with the people who set the direction. Tune in to State of the Nation every Monday to Thursday, 8 to 9 o'clock. Only on GB News.
Bold. They are under no illusion. Ray, are you a human trafficker? Boundless. I've had enough of the nonsense, and I'm not afraid to say it.
Don't get this on the BBC.
Every weeknight, I tear through the headlines.
The smell of gasoline.
Should we be worried about it? From Westminster madness to cultural war chaos.
I'm going to do now, they are throwing things out the car as we speak.
Get ready, Britain. Here we go. Patrick Christie's tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back. Your time is 4:28. You're with me, Martin Daubney, here on GB News. Now, lockdowns could have been avoided entirely during the pandemic had ministers reacted more quickly to the emerging threat of the virus. The COVID-19 inquiry has concluded today. Let's get some immediate reaction now from a great friend of the show, and that's the independent statistician and the political commentator, Jamie Jenkins. Jamie, welcome to the show. A pleasure to have your company. A lot of us said all along that the economic impact of lockdowns has been absolutely horrendous to the economy. It's something they try and blame Brexit. They try and blame everything. We know lockdowns cause a huge impact. And the COVID inquiry today has concluded we wouldn't have needed lockdowns at all.
Yeah, I think what's quite strange in this one, though, is they're saying that if we'd had an earlier lockdown and taken earlier measures, we wouldn't have needed further lockdowns. But what we consistently saw during the pandemic, Martin, and I was covering a lot of the facts across the pandemic quite weekly, and what we were seeing is that pretty much like every time we had a wave of COVID, you saw a big rise in cases, and then sometimes that led to hospitalizations, and then they fell off again. And then we got to a point where it was unsustainable for the country to continue to have lockdowns. So we went back into this living with COVID situation. We saw exactly the same trend when we didn't have those lockdowns then as what we did when we had lockdowns. And what's quite interesting as well is that for the very first time, I think there was a lot of call in 2021 when their Omicron variant hit the country. There was a big SAGE model saying that if we don't lock down, this is what's going to happen. Boris Johnson knew economically we couldn't do it late in 2021. And that was the first time during the pandemic we were able to actually track what actually happened by not doing something versus the model in itself. And the model was awful. It was 93% of the deaths were lower than what the modelling was predicting. So I'm not surprised the COVID inquiry is concluding this, because I think a lot of us, and probably you included, thought this is the kind of thing they would come up with.
You're entirely right, Jamie Jenkins, to say that they're still trying to say, oh, no, we should have just locked down a bit earlier. If we'd done it a bit earlier, we wouldn't need the hammering lockdowns later on. Jamie Jenkins, I put it to you. At the time, people like myself, I was on national television saying, well, look at Sweden. Sweden has been much more sensible. They're trying to control the outbreak in public. Places like Florida, places like Texas. And that debate was continually suppressed. The government wouldn't allow it. The mainstream media wouldn't allow it. And the fact of the matter is, perhaps the conclusion of today's report is half right. We didn't need lockdowns at all. We should have just shielded the most vulnerable and let society get on with it.
Yeah, there's a good case for the most vulnerable, and kind of looking at the overwhelming of hospitals. But like I say, the key crucial part in all of this is that when we stopped having lockdowns, we did consider seeing cases go up. And then if you plot the trend, they say they went up, stayed up for a few weeks, and then they came back down, just natural waves as we went through the pandemic. And for me, the critical part is what the COVID pandemic and the inquiry is not looking at is, looking at the modelling that we talked about just now there, that 93% figure that they were out on the COVID model in late 2021. They're saying that, they've done modelling to assess how many deaths that could have been saved had we had an earlier lockdown. Well, if the models they were doing at the time were awful, I'd take some of those with a bit of a pinch of salt as well, Martin.
Do you think politically we have a situation here where the right questions were never asked at the time because we had political conformity? Every political party at the time wanted lockdowns. And as I said earlier, the Labour Party, the Liberal Democrats, the so-called opposition, they wanted more of it. They wanted harder, sooner, longer lockdowns. Nobody ever said, hang on a minute, are we sure? It was that phrase, it was a uni-party approach.
Yeah, there was what I would say groupthink in terms of most of the Western world, really, that one country did it. I think we started seeing the emerging in Italy. They started looking at measures, and more countries started doing the same thing. It was a bit like what you talk about Sweden there, that a country couldn't stand out on its own and do something different because, this could be a travesty if we don't do it. But the things that we've talked about on the show recently, that the cost of borrowing figures, the unemployment numbers, the state of the economy, all of this goes back to the decisions that were made during COVID. And it's quite easy for Rachel Reeves and Keir Starmer to criticise the Conservatives for racking up debt themselves. But the debts would have probably been higher. There would have been longer lockdowns. And when Rishi Sunak stood up on the podium offering that furlough scheme, people were like, look, great, this is great. He's paying us to stay at home. But who's paying for it now, Martin? We all are. So I think that's ultimately, if they looked at those political decisions, I don't think the COVID inquiry is, it's going to have this big, long report. It's going to be sat on a shelf somewhere. And is it going to really change how we would do things in the future? By the looks of it, probably not.
Now, Jamie Jenkins, of course, some people say that lives were saved by lockdowns, and nobody can deny that a sensible strategy of protecting the most vulnerable, protecting the elderly, protecting those with underlying health conditions would have been a sensible thing that everybody agrees is a great idea. But that didn't happen. In fact, care homes became, scenes of tragedy when victims were put back into them. But back to your economic point, we talk all the time on the show, Jamie Jenkins, you and I, about the addiction almost that people got for benefits, for being paid to not work. Do you think that COVID lockdowns played a huge part of programming people to be paid to not work?
I think there's an element of that. I suppose one of the benefits is a positive and a negative to say some of the flexible working that we have as well, with a lot of people working from home. I think it's great to get people in the office. In particular, a lot of the civil service, a lot of them don't even go back. And has that had an impact on the productivity puzzle there? I think that is one of the overarching things that COVID may kind of deliver. And you hit a really good point there as well. So I'm a football coach, Martin, as well. And the travesty for me was that, and Chris Whitty's come out recently saying that we should never have done this, which was that we were actually allowing children initially before they closed the schools to go into classrooms, but they weren't allowed to come out and do some sport outdoors, which is absolute nonsense. And that's the real thing. We've got to remember the damage that we've done to the younger people. Totally support the idea of like shielding the vulnerable and looking at that part. Well, what do? We discharged people from hospitals back into care homes, possibly with the virus. That was probably another travesty that was done. But I think there's a lot of lessons to be learned on this one, Martin. But I don't think the COVID pandemic has asked the right questions. And for me, the modelling, putting my statistician's hat back on, the modelling was awful during the pandemic. And it's the data that was leading to a lot of these decisions in the first place. And the politicians didn't really have the good facts in front of them.
Jamie Jenkins, I know you're an expert on data analysis and you were across the modelling at the time. Do you think that the government can be accused, the advisors, the experts can be accused of simply going for the doomsday scenario, and that was the problem?
Oh, definitely. You could see with that model I just talked about, where Sage were predicting so many deaths if Boris didn't do another kind of big lockdown in 2021. That was the kind of the variant that was a bit less deadly, but it had a lot more kind of transmission. And the one good thing with, say, Boris not doing anything, we were then able to say, look, let's look at the actual data for the first time. What actually happened? Because basically they modelled different scenarios and say when deaths were 93% lower with Boris not doing anything. He had a lot of criticism at the time, actually. I remember it. And he didn't do anything. Deaths were significantly lower. So would they have been a lot lower if we hadn't have done things? What we don't have, Martin, is we don't have, because we can't go back in time to say, well, what if we never locked down? What would have been the outcome? But looking at the data a bit later on in the pandemic, there was not a massive difference in terms of the ups and downs of the curves when we didn't lock down versus when we did.
Jamie Jenkins, could also ask you about something else that was a huge talking point at the time, and it's back again, and that is track and trace, COVID passports. Now we're seeing it manifesting itself, of course, as a digital ID. Is that something else that government officials and prime ministers got a taste for during lockdowns? Authoritarianism, using technology as a way of tracking us. Even, remember at the time, it's incredible to believe now, as you said, people weren't allowed to play children's football. They weren't allowed to go to church, to gyms, to congregate, sometimes even to the most basic of human rights gatherings. And now it's back. Tony Blair was a huge driver of the COVID passports, modelled on Israel's Green Pass. Michael Gove got a taste for it. They all got a taste for it. Is that authoritarian streak, is that coming back? And do you think COVID inspired it?
Yeah, I think there's an element of that. The mental thing, I suppose, with the COVID passport at the time was that, if you remember, they said that you couldn't go into nightclubs if you didn't have your jab and your COVID passport. And then not long after doing that, Martin, they then closed the nightclubs because the COVID cases were going up. So they clearly had no impact. People were having vaccines to go on holiday, many people who were probably at very low risk from the virus themselves. And then what we were then still seeing kind of travel bans. I know Novak Djokovic had a lot of criticism for deciding not to have the vaccine at the time, and he couldn't play in some tournaments. He's come out of it the other end and things. So we're going into this era now where they're talking of doing digital ID, and the way they're selling it to the public in terms of, well, it will reduce illegal immigration and illegal working, when we know across many countries in Europe, illegal working is getting worse. They've got digital ID. So I think, yeah, the COVID pandemic was the start of that taste of a bit of authoritarian over the public. And digital ID is clearly an area we don't want to go. We've only seen this week, haven't we, the internet and the crashes that happen. If everything's relying on digital ID and you're looking there and you think, well, I can't do something because the internet's gone down, that's not a road we want to really be going down.
OK, Jamie Jenkins, thank you for joining us and giving us some common sense. As ever, Stats of the Nation is great Substack you do there. Thank you very much. As ever, Jamie Jenkins, pleasure to have your company. All the latest there on the COVID lockdown. We'll have much more on that, the COVID inquiry, throughout the rest of the show. Here's a break.
Hi there, welcome to the latest update from the Met Office for GB News. It certainly feels cold out there, particularly in the wind towards the northeast. The wind's coming from the Arctic at the moment, bringing showers for some, but actually dry, bright weather for many. And the showers will ease during the rest of the day, leading to a period of weather in which it's cold but dry. And the main hazard overnight becomes ice because of the showers that we've seen across the north, the east, into Northern Ireland, these western fringes of West Wales as well as Cornwall. Well, there'll be some slippery surfaces where we've seen these showers coming through, where temperatures fall overnight, because it's going to be a widely frosty one. Temperatures dipping -2 to -6 Celsius widely, below -10 Celsius for some snow-covered parts of Scotland. So a freezing start to the day on Friday, but a bright start. There'll be some fog patches here and there, but plenty of sunshine for Scotland. Fewer showers for sure compared with the last few days. Northern Ireland likewise, clear blue skies in the morning, the best period of weather for Northern Ireland Friday morning. And then for England and Wales, plenty of sunshine, but there will be some areas of cloud, particularly for the Midlands into the southeast, and also some fog patches, particularly towards the west. Still 1 or 2 showers running in from the North Sea coast, but these are going to fade through the day, leading to plenty of dry and bright weather, and after that icy start in places, it's a fine day for the vast majority. It's going to feel cold though, 5 or 6 Celsius in many places, and where we've got some snow cover, staying below freezing. But it is turning milder, a change on the way. I think for Scotland and Northern Ireland it turns cloudier through the afternoon, and then we've got these outbreaks of rain pushing into western Scotland, arriving into Northern Ireland by the evening, and they topple in across the whole of the country during Saturday, marking a change to wetter, windier, but also less cold weather this weekend.
Thank you, Britain, for sharing over 5 million comments on your say, because when you talk, we listen.
Good afternoon. This is the latest AI travel news from GBNews.com. The A5 between Carrog and Glyndifordwy remains closed, impacting both directions. In Lancashire, the M58 westbound exit slip at Junction 5 is closed due to a vehicle fire, with normal conditions expected by 5 to 5:15 this evening. In Kent, the M20 eastbound between Junctions 3 and 4 is down to 1 lane following a collision. In Wiltshire, the A36 southbound is shut due to a collision between the A3098 and the A350. And on the trains, Avanti West Coast reports major disruptions between Lancaster and Oxenholme Lake District, while Northern reports issues. For more travel news, go to gbnews.com.
It's 4:41. Let's cross live now to a COVID inquiry press conference.
We could have spent with our loved ones. We need to reflect on how we, the public, were left so vulnerable. We can't just hope that we have better leaders in the future. The government must implement the safeguards recommended by the inquiry immediately. Otherwise, we are no safer now than we were during the darkest days in UK's living memory. Thank you.
That, of course, is the National COVID Memorial Wall there. I think a range of members of the public are rocking up to speak. Shall we take a listen into what the next speaker has to say now?
For the campaign group, I think today in reading Module 2 and Module 2C, we feel that the Chair has very much hit the nail on the head, especially when it comes to Northern Ireland. In Module 1, on one level, we felt like a footnote, but we can't say that in Module 2C. She has made some really good recommendations in relation to how the First and Deputy First Minister need to, in the case of an emergency, have an oversight, so that mechanism needs to be put in place. She's also highlighted the issues with the Chief Medical Officer and how he's wearing too many hats, and realistically it should be an independent role that has no management involvement in the Department of Health. She's highlighted the lack of a socio-economic guidance in relation to Article 75, and that needs made amended. She talks about the toxicity. She talks about how the political histories take over that of the needs of society in Northern Ireland, and quite often the veto that stops decisions being made is used inappropriately. And I think it's very much clear that this inquiry has been needed to show why things need to change across the four nations, and we as a society deserve so much better. Our next big thing is to work with all administrations to ensure that these reports, which are quite heavy, and I'm hoping EasyJet don't charge me extra baggage to get back to Northern Ireland, they need to look at them, they need to work with us, and they need to ensure that they're implemented. And if they're not, I want to know why, as does the families within our group that we represent. I very much found today emotional. My mummy died on the 24th of March 2020. And the chairs made it clear that had a lockdown been a week earlier, people like my mummy would have been saved, or quite possibly. The same way that failure to learn from the lessons in the first wave impacted on the second wave. So now we know somewhere along the line in the future there will be a further pandemic. There will be no excuses. It's in black and white in Module 1, Module 2, A, B and C, and the future modules. Now it's up to those who are paid to look after every single member of society, and especially in Northern Ireland, not to hide behind the political structures, because there's means and ways to change. And if they think it's too difficult, they just need to come and talk to us, members of the public, because I can tell them how it needs to change. Thank you very much. Thank you.
If you're joining us, it's just 4:45, and breaking news in this past half hour. The COVID lockdown inquiry has concluded that lockdowns could have been avoided altogether. The conclusion, the report, is that the 23,000 deaths could have been avoided, but the caveat is they should have been earlier lockdowns, not perhaps lockdowns could have been mitigated or avoided altogether with sensible protection of the most vulnerable and the elderly. And still, by the tone of this report, still very much laying the blame at the door of Boris Johnson's Conservative government. We're awaiting there, you can see on your screens, the National COVID Memorial Wall, which has been given protected status recently. That will remain as a permanent fixture in London. We're awaiting as a rolling press conference here from survivors, those who've been impacted in their lives, speaking to the press. Until we get to that, it's worth just reiterating some of the conclusions from today's report. As I said, the big finding, if stringent restrictions had been put in place before March the 16th, 2020, you remember that date, that was the first time when the country went into lockdown, then there would be no need for more drastic measures, perhaps later on. Lockdowns could have been avoided entirely during the pandemic. Baroness Hallett, the Inquirer, the chairman, repeated if more stringent restrictions had been put in place before, there'd have been no need for a lockdown. Measures including contact tracing, self-isolation, face coverings and respiratory hygiene could have stopped the need for a lockdown if introduced earlier. So still maintaining we should have done more of the same, but just earlier. How about the question that hasn't been asked? Was any of this stuff necessary at all for wider society, or like other perhaps more enlightened places such as Sweden, Florida, Texas? We should have focused on protecting those who are most at risk, the elderly, those with underlying health conditions, and let the business economy, let children carry on as before. Huge breaking news story. We'll have more on that throughout the rest of the show. But for now, let's move on. Because transgender people, it's been announced today, could be banned from single-sex spaces based on their appearance. That's according to a new guidance provided by the Equality and Human Rights Commission. Now, the news comes amid growing backlash over both private and public bodies' failure to implement the Supreme Court's ruling. Well, let's now speak with the co-founder of For Women Scotland, Susan Smith. Susan, welcome to the show. It seems like a time warp. Back in April, we were jubilant that at last, there you go, the law is the law, biology is biology, science is science, and yet still, both private and government departments dragging their heels. The latest thing, women should be able to say, hang on a sec, that looks like a bloke, and that to me seems fair, but Bridget Phillips and the government are still saying it's going too far. What say you?
It's absolutely ridiculous. I mean, today we've had a lot of people up in arms because there's a suggestion that we can tell what sex somebody is by looking at them. Well, you know, babies and toddlers can tell what sex somebody is by looking at them. I mean, I've also heard nonsense that if you say you're judging people by appearance, you're judging them on what they're wearing. Well, you're not. I mean, I keep thinking of all those Carry On films where Bernard Bresslaw was made to dress in a woman's skirt by Sid James. And the joke was that all the, you know, the idiot doctors in the hospital couldn't tell that Bernard was just a man in a nurse's outfit. And it's absurd. It's this stupid idea that human beings cannot tell what sex someone is, and that we are deceived if they happen to be wearing a dress or if they happen to be wearing a wig. Most of the time, it's really obvious to know what sex somebody is. So all this stuff about it's based on appearance is just saying that we use our common sense, and that if somebody comes into a space and they are 6'3" and they've got a beard and a deep voice, the odds are that that's a man, and we can say to him, please will you leave this place, it's for women.
But yes, Bridget Phillipson is saying she'll carefully go through these recommendations, and the intimation clearly is that she's very concerned that this could be seen as divisive. How is it divisive? Just to say that the Supreme Court law was ruled, you know, biology agrees, and now the International Olympic Committee agrees, the FA agrees, cricket, England, netball, everybody seems to agree, apart from the blooming government.
It's not divisive, it's just what the Supreme Court said. And back in April, they were all saying how it was a clear ruling and they accepted the ruling, and now they're seemingly backtracking. Well, the solution is, if Bridget Phillips and if the government don't think that people should have sex-based rights or spaces appropriate to them because of their sex, they need to change the law, and they need to go to the country potentially and make the arguments that they think that women don't deserve to be safe in places like prisons and hospitals. And I'd be very interested to see how much support they get from the wider public. You know, the divisive argument is to say that women should be put at risk, because that's what's caused all this trouble for the past 10 years.
What I don't get, right, if a woman who's in a women's only space, and forgive me if I'm mansplaining, if a woman in a woman only space says, hang on, I think that's a bloke who's in a women's only space, and they go to somebody, say, in a gym, and say to the owner or somebody who works there, I think that's a bloke, and that's common sense, and they're meant to go over and say, excuse me, I think you might be a bloke. How can that be transphobic? What's plan B? A strip search?
Do you know, it's so ridiculous, because I think there's this bizarre notion that we can't possibly tell. In 99% of cases, we can tell. Now, maybe there will be a couple of people who it's not so clear cut. If what the trans lobby said was true, if it was almost impossible for us to see who was male and who was female, then they should be delighted by this, because it would mean that if they make themselves look feminine enough, they'll get away with it. But the fact of the matter is that they still do, as I said before, look like Bernard Bresslaw in a frock. They don't look like a woman just because they've put a dress on. So, yes, women should have the right to be able to say, I think there's a man in there. I have good reason to believe that is a man, because most of the time it's pretty obvious, and it's concerning.
Okay, we have to leave it there. Thank you very much for joining us, co-founder of For Women Scotland, Susan Smith. And of course, it's worth pointing out, everybody wishes trans people, anybody, a peaceful and prosperous life. It's not about that. And also, it's fair to point out the vast majority of trans people, no doubt, are not meaning anything harmful towards women. But this is about keeping women safe. Thank you very much, Susan Smith. Quick bit of breaking news for you. Sad for me, certainly, as a Stone Roses fan. The bassist of Stone Roses, Gary Manny Malmfield, has tragically died at the age of 63. Now, Malmfield was a founding member of the legendary Mancunian group, and he later joined Primal Scream, Stone Roses bassist Manny, huge character, met him a couple of times, legendary music, defined my generation. I was in Manchester as a student at the time. A sad loss, died age 63. Rest in peace, Gary Manny Malmfield. Now, don't go anywhere. This is GB News. In the next hour, we'll have much more on the COVID lockdown inquiry, and we'll also have Pauline Wally, an astonishing brave woman who was assaulted by a Syrian immigrant. The huge story, don't miss it.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Boxed Boilers sponsors the weather on GB News.
Hi there, welcome to the latest update from the Met Office for GB News. Certainly feels cold out there, particularly in the wind towards the northeast. The wind's coming from the Arctic at the moment, bringing showers for some, but actually dry, bright weather for many. And the showers will ease during the rest of the day, leading to a period of weather in which it's cold but dry. And the main hazard overnight becomes ice because of the showers that we've seen across the north, the east, into Northern Ireland, these western fringes of West Wales, as well as Cornwall. Well, there'll be some slippery surfaces where we've seen these showers coming through, where temperatures fall overnight, because it's going to be a widely frosty one. Temperatures dipping -2 to -6 Celsius widely, below -10 Celsius for some snow-covered parts of Scotland. So a freezing start to the day on Friday, but a bright start. So there'll be some fog patches here and there, but plenty of sunshine for Scotland. Fewer showers for sure compared with the last few days. Northern Ireland likewise, clear blue skies in the morning, the best period of weather for Northern Ireland Friday morning. And then for England and Wales, plenty of sunshine, but there will be some areas of cloud, particularly for the Midlands into the southeast, and also some fog patches, particularly towards the west. Still 1 or 2 showers running in from the North Sea coast, but these are going to fade through the day, leading to plenty of dry and bright weather, and after that icy start in places, it's a fine day for the vast majority. It's going to feel cold though, 5 or 6 Celsius in many places, and where we've got some snow cover, staying below freezing. But it is turning milder, a change on the way. I think for Scotland and Northern Ireland it turns cloudier through the afternoon, and then we've got these outbreaks of rain pushing into western Scotland, arriving into Northern Ireland by the evening, and they topple in across the whole of the country during Saturday, marking a change to wetter, windier, but also less cold weather this weekend.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Boxed Boilers sponsors the weather on GB News.
Thank you so much for helping us to reach 8 million followers and subscribers across our social media channels. That's 8 million fearless Brits standing up for what really matters.
Good afternoon. This is the latest AI travel news from GBNews.com. Please be aware of significant disruptions impacting travel today. Motorists on the M4 westbound should anticipate congestion between Coldra and Malpass. In Derbyshire, expect delays of 20 minutes on the A38 southbound. In Wiltshire, a collision on the A36 southbound has closed all lanes until further notice. The M4 westbound entry at Junction 6 in Slough is shut due to a vehicle fire. And on the trains, Avanti West Coast has reported disruptions at Glasgow Central and between Lancaster and Oxenholme. Cross-country services face delays between Doncaster and York. For more travel news, go to gbnews.com.
There's just 2 weeks left to see how you could win your Christmas this year paid for by us. First, we'll give you an incredible £30,000 in tax-free cash. Then we'll give you a further £10,000 cash to spend on all your Christmas presents, even the tree. Christmas lunch, that's on us too, with £1,000 in shopping vouchers to spend at your favourite supermarket. Finally, a GB News Christmas goodie bag. For another chance to win, text WIN to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message, or text BONUS to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge, or post your name and number to GB17 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 28th of November. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand.
I'm Michelle Dewberry, this is Jubes & Co with you.
Hello everyone, Patrick Christie is here. GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Access the stories that matter to you. Take the GB News family with you on any device. And as long as you have an internet connection, tune in to GB News anywhere on the planet or beyond. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
Very, very good afternoon to you. It's 5 p.m. and welcome to the Martin Daubney Show here on GB News. We're broadcasting live across the UK, all the very latest news, debate and analysis all the way through until 6 p.m. Here's what's coming up on today's action-packed show. Breaking news in this past hour. The COVID inquiry claims that lockdowns could have been avoided altogether if the government had acted more quickly. There's been a huge U-turn in the position. Were lockdowns a gigantic mistake all along? We'll continue to bring you all the latest reaction to that story throughout the show. And elsewhere, an astonishing 500 immigrants are signing on to benefits every single day in Britain, with 1.3 million foreigners now on universal credit, costing you, the British taxpayer, an astonishing £10 billion every single year. Today, in the House of Commons, Shabana Mahmood said this.
Specifically, it proposes that benefits might not be available to those who have settled status, reserving them instead for those who have earned British citizenship.
You notice there that Ms Mahmood stopped short of a reform-style total ban on benefits for immigrants. And meanwhile, Shabana Mahmood is also considering a big increase in so-called golden goodbye payments that we pay to illegal immigrants. Now, the current £3,000 maximum could go as high as 20 grand. And today we've learned the Romanian who raped 10 British women was offered a £1,500 fee to flee the country. Is it time to axe these insulting payments? And on today's show, I'll be joined by an extremely brave lady. Her name is Pauline Wally. She's living in fear after being attacked by a Syrian immigrant while simply doing her job. Her story is shocking and you'll not want to miss it. Welcome to the show. It's a pleasure to have your company. COVID lockdowns could have been avoided altogether and were a mistake. That's the conclusion of the COVID report. But they say we could have avoided the lockdowns by locking down sooner and harder, blaming squarely the Boris Johnson government. How about if we'd avoided lockdowns altogether for business people, for the healthy, for children, and instead focus on the vulnerable, our elderly, and those with underlying health conditions? A huge amount to talk about. And do you believe Shabana Mahmood when she postures herself as the new Iron Lady of immigration, talking tough, sounding tough, but does it bear up to scrutiny? Will it have any impact? Will it deter people coming here or simply delay their route to citizenship, all the while being bankrolled by you, the great British taxpayer. Get in touch, GBNews.com/You'll Say is the way to do so. But now it's time for your headlines, and here's Tatiana Sanchez.
Martin, thank you very much. The top stories: chaos at the heart of government and a failure to take COVID-19 seriously cost 23,000 lives in the first wave of the pandemic, a public inquiry has concluded. The UK COVID-19 inquiry says the government response to the pandemic in March of 2020 was too little, too late. The inquiry also says lockdown could have been avoided altogether if steps such as social distancing and isolating those with symptoms had been introduced earlier, adding toxic and chaotic culture in the UK government affected decision-making. It added, saying that then Prime Minister Boris Johnson failed to tackle and sometimes... The Home Secretary has unveiled one of the most sweeping rewrites of the UK's migration rules in decades, warning that years of rapid arrivals have destabilised communities. Shabana Mahmood says settlement will no longer be automatic, with tougher checks, longer waits and new expectations on English, tax contributions and criminal records. It means almost 2 million people who migrated legally to Britain since 2021 will now need to have been in the UK for 10 years instead of 5 in order to be considered for permanent settlement. But the opposition mocked the announcement, with Shadow Home Secretary Chris Philp joking that Labour had simply borrowed Conservative policy and rebranded it as their own.
There is much in this statement I support, not least because so much of it is so familiar. So I am delighted, Madam Deputy Speaker, to see that the Shadow Home Secretary, upon arrival at number 2 Marsham Street, has got out the copy and paste function on her laptop and started copying and pasting Conservative policies.
Shabana Mahmood hit back, insisting the Tories lost the right to lecture anyone after presiding over record migration and what she called an open border experiment.
Given their current track record, they barely have the right to ask questions, let alone propose solutions. Like settlement, it's my view that you have to earn the right to offer solutions, and I would say to him, one way of earning that right would be to apologise for what the Tories did first and foremost.
The government's under fire over Britain's defence readiness after the sighting of a Russian spy ship off Scotland and claims the UK's defences are still dangerously exposed. Shadow Defence Secretary James Cartledge blasted what he called Labour's glacial pace on strengthening security, warning the Yantar's laser attack on RAF pilots marks a serious escalation. But Defence Minister Alistair Cairns hit back, accusing the Conservatives of leaving Britain's armed forces decrepit. He said the Yantar will not go unchallenged, with the Navy and RAF tracking its every move, and warned Russia that any attempt to interfere with UK undersea infrastructure would be met with the firmest response.
The Yantar has once again been operating in and around the UK's EEZ for the second time this year. During this time, she was continuously monitored by Royal Navy frigate HMS Somerset and the RAF's P8s. We will ensure that the Yantar is not able to conduct its mission unchallenged or untracked. But this has not been without difficulties.
After one of the most shocking police abuse cases in UK history, David Carrick has been jailed for life again, this time with a 30-year minimum term for molesting a 12-year-old girl and raping a former partner. The ex-armed Met officer, already serving dozens of life sentences for 71 previous sex offences, was convicted of 5 indecent assaults on a child in the late 1980s and rape and coercive control against a woman he terrorised for years. Jurors saw a handwritten confession signed Dave and heard how his later victim said he ruined her life. Prosecutors called him a manipulative predator who hid behind his warrant card. Detectives say these new convictions finally give his victims a voice and warn that if his confession had been acted on back in 1990, many more women could have been protected. And the UK has shivered through its coldest night so far, with temperatures sinking well below freezing across all 4 nations, down to -6 in Cumbria and -5 in Wales. Yellow warnings for snow and ice stretch across much of the country, and there's an amber alert for North Yorkshire, where up to 25 centimetres of snow could fall on higher ground. Forecasters say some could even see thunder snow later, rare winter thunderstorms with heavy, fast-falling snow. Around 100 schools in northern Scotland are closed as snow and ice bring further disruption across the area. And those are the latest headlines for now. More from me in half an hour.
Cheers Britannia Wine Club. proudly sponsors the GB News Financial Report.
And here's a look at the markets. The pound buying you $1.3099 and €1.1354 euros. The price of gold is £3,105.47 per ounce, and the FTSE 100 is at 9,554 points.
Cheers Britannia Wine Club proudly sponsors the GB News Financial Report.
Thank you, Tatiana. Breaking news in this past hour, and it's this. COVID lockdowns could have been avoided entirely during the pandemic had ministers reacted more quickly to the emerging threat of the virus. The COVID-19 has this afternoon concluded. Well, I'm joined in the studio by a Homeland Security editor, Mark White. Mark, welcome back. So you've been poring over Baroness Hallett's findings since the news broke in the past hour. A lot of people thought that the inquiry didn't ask the right questions, and central was, did we need to do all these lockdowns in the first place? It appears the conclusion is, no, we didn't.
Yeah, I mean, I think, she was to an extent asking some of the right questions. Clearly, it's critical of the way in which the Conservative government at the time handled this. Critical of Matt Hancock, the former Health Secretary, someone who, according to Baroness Hallett, should have been reined in by his permanent secretary and was not. This man is now the Cabinet Secretary, by the way, so that criticism may find its way to him, and he may be on, as we say in Scotland, a bit of a sugary peg. They're also talking about the Scientific Advisory Group for Emergencies, SAGE. Remember them?
Yes.
They were the group of scientists and other experts who were brought in to determine what the response should be at every stage of this pandemic. She said that this group, SAGE, risked groupthink because of its narrow membership and failure to represent dissenting opinions. Baroness Hallett said that, of the 19 recommendations, she said that that had the government acted sooner with a more sort of stringent response to the outbreak before it really took hold, then we could have got to the stage where the lockdowns could have been shorter, or, she said, perhaps even avoided altogether. But she was quite clear in her assessment of SAGE, and one of her recommendations is, in future emergencies like this, there needs to be a much wider group of experts brought in so that everything can be assessed. For instance, SAGE didn't take into account what the effect would be on schools, and the lack of ability to be properly educated, to sit exams and all of that, children after that have probably still suffered to this day from the aspects there. Also, issues around domestic violence, women that were locked up for long periods of time with their abuser, things like that were just never really taken in to the discussion and considered because of what SAGE's focus was, which was all about the NHS first, protect the NHS at all costs.
As we move towards the budget next week, of course, the economic impact of lockdowns was absolutely astonishing, brutal. To this day, billions and billions and billions of pounds shovelled in to schemes to encourage people not to work, the whole cost of the thing. And yet, it admits in this report today there was never any impact assessment done. That was never even a consideration. We were led by fear. We were led by hive-minded experts. And all the while, Mark White, there was no political opposition. Everybody agreed. Everyone had the same mindset.
Yeah. And you found many people actually within the wider public at the time who were suddenly finding a situation where they were allowed to stay at home, but still get at least 3/4 of their salary, depending on the salary threshold they were on. And then if employers chipped in, getting about 100% of their salary. Many people in the wider public were in favour of lockdowns as well in that period. But you also had a great deal of fraud that was taking place because of lockdown. and payments that were paid out to companies and employees, and a fraction of the fraud that was committed has ever been recovered by the government.
And it probably won't ever be recovered. And I wonder if all of this is window dressing for a potential future pandemic. To be forearmed, to be forewarned. It seems to me, reading Baroness Hallett report here, Lady Hallett, beg your pardon, they're basically saying next time round, we'll just do all of this sooner. We'll do all of it harder. And maybe it might include Sir Keir Starmer's digital ID.
Well, I would share your scepticism, except for this. Just reading through some of her comments there, I think she does get it about the wider damage to society that was done by these lockdowns. By groups of experts who were very narrow in their focus, who didn't take into consideration those wider implications on society. And perhaps what she is concluding from this is, yes, move quickly, take measures, short of a lockdown perhaps, that if you do have to go to lockdowns, they can be for a shorter period and maybe they can be avoided altogether.
There we go. The great lockdown inquiry finally out. Lockdowns could have been avoided altogether. Astonishing. Mark White, thank you very much. Expert as ever. Thanks for your expertise. Now, moving on, is Britain simply starting to resemble one massive cash machine? Well, as record numbers of immigrants are claiming universal credit payments in the UK. Last month, 472 migrants every single day began claiming universal credits, while the overall number of foreign nationals receiving it rose to an astonishing 1.3 million. That's a 6.7% annual increase, costing you, the British taxpayer, an incredible £10.3 billion per year. Now, the news comes as the Home Secretary today, Shabana Mahmood, laid out plans to tighten the immigration system in the House of Commons.
We will not change the rules for those with settled status today. These are people who have been in our country for years, even decades. They have families here, wives, husbands, children. They've worked in our hospitals, taught in our schools, and have been contributing to our society for years. Fairness is the most fundamental of British values. We made a promise when we gave them settlement, and we do not break our promises.
Now, as if that wasn't enough, we also heard there are going to be so-called increased payments for those fee to flee, going up from £3,000 to potentially £20,000 paid to British criminals to get out of the country. Sorry, to foreign criminals to get out of Britain. Of course, a case came out today, an incredible case. The ringleader of a Romanian grooming gang has been offered £1,500 by the Home Office in a so-called golden goodbye deal. Think about that. That's £150 per rape, a Romanian being paid to get out of the country. Let's now speak with the former campaign director of Reform UK, and that's Michael Hadwin. Michael, welcome to the show. A pleasure to have your company. So the Shabana Mahmood, the Home Secretary, trying to appear very much like the Iron Lady of immigration, bringing in a raft of measures. Did anything leap out to you today as impressive enough to control this problem?
Well, the thing I find really funny about this is the Liberal argument for years has been that we need mass migration because it adds to the economy. But the issue we have here is when people see the bill that's coming from foreign nationals claiming universal credit and other welfare, it destroys the whole point. And I think it's wonderful that Labour have maybe switched on to the idea that they can try and win back voters, but it's little too late. I have loads of Labour strategists always saying, what is Reform's secret? Why are they able to achieve what they're achieving? And it's because Reform are actually talking about the things that people want to talk about. So unfortunately, the Home Secretary's words are very, very hollow, and none of these efforts are going to make a single difference.
Is it not fair to say, though, that Shabana Mahmood at least has been making a lot of moves that you might think are the right kind of moves by extending the period it takes to become a British citizen from 5, sometimes to 15 years, by talking about cutting back on benefits for immigrants coming in? But do you think that goes far enough? I mean, for example, there was no guarantee that people coming in won't get benefits, and there's no guarantee of deportations even.
Well, that's the exact point. You know, it reminds me of thinking about the idea of someone on the Titanic with a bucket trying to pedal out water. It's little too late. You know, when we look at the situation at the time and the things that need to be done to actually get this under control, you know, Reform's already spoken about it. What we need to do is we need to end universal credit for those foreign nationals, you know, even those on EU settled status. You know, we'd be looking at saving £6 billion in 25-26. You know, those are the type of things that people want to see, because it's all well and good someone saying, look, it's going to be harder to become a British citizen. It's not going to be as easy to get settled status. But actually, what we need to do is get rid of these schemes that people are using. In my opinion, if you're coming to the UK and you want to contribute to the economy, that's brilliant. But it should not be that easy for you to stay long term without proof of what you're contributing. You know, I've got family members who came over to the UK in the Windrush generation, people who have made a massive contribution. What's happening now is an insult to them, because they paid into the system. They were loyal to the country that they wanted to live in. And actually, we need to go so much further.
OK, we'll have to leave it there. Thanks for joining us, the former campaign director for Reform UK, Michael Hadwin. Thank you very much. Mark White, get some reaction from you. Clearly, the Labour Party are getting on a front foot, give them that, about controlling immigration, both illegal and legal. Shabana Mahmood is very impressive in Chamber this week, but we often talk, when reality bites, will any of this work?
Yeah, well, the front bench is clearly getting on the front foot with regard to the policies around illegal migration, asylum, and, of course, legal migration now. But actually get that message out to the backbenchers, because already we saw the reaction to Shabana Mahmood's announcement around illegal migration and asylum. A head of steam is gathering there to try to oppose some of the measures that the Home Secretary wants to introduce. I'm sure that exactly the same thing will happen with the issues around legal migration, that it will not be palatable for many on the backbench, the fact that people coming to this country to work in whatever field are having to wait not 5 but 10 years, and potentially more than that if they are not learning English to a satisfactory degree, if they're not behaving themselves, if they're not volunteering.
And Mark White, it's worth repeating, you put an excellent question to Katherine Atkinson, the MP for Derby North Labour Party, earlier on. You asked her specifically, she didn't know the answer, and few do, of the continual ramping up of how many people have been deported by the Labour government. You asked her how many have actually been on small boats. She didn't know, and the answer is how many?
It's a tiny fraction. The fact is the government won't tell us. Yeah. I've asked repeatedly what this is. You know, when it was up at 35,000, now it's up to 50,000. They won't tell us, I suspect, because it's very, very small, the number. I mean, the fact is, it is, as I said to the MP, low-hanging fruit. It is visa overstayers, people that they can bribe to go with a payment, so they don't have to have security around them. They just get on a plane and leave. It is foreign national offenders. It is other immigration offenders, but very few of those are people that have come across on small boats, because they claim asylum, and we know that the process of actually getting an asylum decision is not quick, even though this government says it's speeding up that process. Because what happens is once you get a process rejected, well, many then go on to appeal that decision anyway. Just look at the situation with regard to trying to get migrants over to France on this returns deal that Emmanuel Macron and Keir Starmer signed a few months back. 115 is the last total I heard. 115, when more than 12,000 have come in the time that this was operationalised. So you can see that given the time it is just to take them over to France, a safe third country, actually trying to get the majority of small boat migrants out of the country when they come from countries where their human rights lobby can argue that it's not a safe place to return them. it takes far longer.
And Chris Philps said in Chamber earlier on that 10,000 illegals have crossed since Shabana Mood became Home Secretary. Still plenty more to do. Mark White, thank you very much indeed. Superb as ever. Now it's time now for the Great British Giveaway, and there's just 2 weeks left to grab your chance to enjoy Christmas on us this year at GB News. That's £40,000 in tax-free cash, shopping vouchers and a GB News festive goodie bag. If you play it lucky, Mark White might come down your chimney. Here's how you could win.
Just 2 weeks left to see how you could win your Christmas this year paid for by us. First, we'll give you an incredible £30,000 in tax-free cash so you can have a brilliant new year. Then we'll give you a further £10,000 cash to spend on all your Christmas presents, the decorations, even the tree. Christmas lunch, that's on us too, with £1,000 in shopping vouchers to spend at your favourite supermarket. Finally, a GB News Christmas goodie bag. And the best news? You'll get it all in time for the big day. For another chance to win, text WIN to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message. Or text BONUS to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB17 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 28th of November. The winner may be contacted live on GB News, week commencing the 8th of December. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Coming up next, could Britain become a banana republic? Well, I'll be speaking to the editor of the Sunday Telegraph, Alistair Heath, next. He thinks, yes, there's almost a 3/4 chance. This is GB News, Britain's #1 news channel.
Britain was once the envy of the world. But look around. A nation that no longer knows what it is or where it's going. A country that's broken. How do we fix Britain? How do we bring it back? Friday night with Matt Goodwin at 8 p.m. only on GB News.
Decisions made in Washington aren't just shaping America, they're shaping Britain too. From migration to global security, from crime to health. Whatever happens in the White House today
will be felt in your town or city tomorrow.
That's why The Late Show is live from Washington, D.C.
Cutting through the politics to show you what it all means for Britain.
The Late Show live every night at midnight.
Only on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
No matter the state it's in, this is our nation. Join me, Jacob Rees-Mogg, for a genuine, honest discussion on where we have been, where we are going, and where we are with the people who set the direction. Tune in to State of the Nation every Monday to Thursday, 8 to 9 o'clock. Only on GB News.
Exciting news. Every Friday, my Patrick Christie's Tonight Show is going to have a twist to it. We're welcoming some special guests. You. That's right, on Fridays I'm going to be doing my show in front of a live studio audience because this show is about you and what you have to say. It's going to be the same big debates, same big topics, same big opinions, but every Friday night at 9 p.m. you are invited to come on down to Patrick Christie's Tonight to be a part of the action. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation,
no,
isn't it?
No,
because the failure is
you're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Jubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you Spread the word.
Well, good debate time is 5:27. You're with me, Martin Daubney, here on GB News. Now, is Britain heading towards becoming a banana republic? Well, the political landscape has become increasingly divided. Many people have been left fearing that Britain could end up with a hung parliament. Could things get much, much worse? Well, I'm joined in the studio by the editor of the Sunday Telegraph, the columnist, the excellent Alistair Heath. Alistair, welcome to Westminster once again. I've got to say, I read your article this morning. It's wonderfully dystopian, and you concluded Britain's got a 75% chance of going full banana republic. Tell us how.
Well, my piece was a warning to Reform and Tory voters not to be complacent, because a lot of them live in a bubble where they don't know anybody who still supports Labour, and they don't know any Green supporters and so on, and they think it's in the bag. They think Starmer's going to be kicked out next year. I think that's right, by the way, but he's going to be replaced by another Labour leader, and eventually there'll be an election. But then they assume that the right will win and the left will be thrown out. Well, not so fast, I say. I think there's no more than a 50-50 chance of there being some sort of right-wing government after the next election. I think there's a 50% chance of it being a coalition of chaos on the left. Labour, the Greens, the SNP, the Lib Dems, the Independents, everybody. And then even were a right-wing coalition government, for example, between Reform and the Conservatives, to win, I think there's no more than a 50% chance of that government actually succeeding, which means the odds are stacked against Britain, I'm afraid. There's a high chance of it all going wrong and us ending up with an even worse government than we currently have. And that was the purpose of my piece, really.
You talk about the fact, of course, we are seeing record numbers of our brightest and best fleeing the country, or they're being shoved away by taxation policy, the lack of opportunity, and we also have then the grim fangs, the pincer movement of a huge and sprawling and growing benefits dependency class, both foreign and British.
Yes, exactly. I mean, the state of Britain is dire. And it's getting worse and worse. We're going to be monstered again next week when the budget comes along, massive tax increases, following last year's massive tax increases. Many people are leaving the UK, a lot of younger people with degrees, entrepreneurs, millionaires, people who want to make a better life for themselves. It's back like in the 1970s. It's going to get even worse. The state of Britain when it comes to crime, the NHS, the dumbing down of schools, all that sort of stuff means it's less and less attractive to live in the UK. So we desperately need a change of course. The question is, how will it come about? I think it can only come about if you have an extremely well-organised right-wing government at the next election. When I say right-wing, I mean probably some sort of coalition between Reform or Tories, maybe Reform on their own, but maybe a coalition depending on where the polls go. And that government would have to be an incredibly organised government. It'd have to plan a lot of this stuff in advance. It'd have to bring in hundreds of new people into government. It'd have to go to business, to the law, to medicine, to recruit people. It would need to find lots of new advisors. And it would have to have a plan for day one, radical changes to decapitate the blob from day one, to rewire the machinery of government. We need very, very large-scale change in this country. And I think it's extremely complacent for any voter to think that this is going to come naturally. It's going to be very hard.
Alistair, people might say this is all so gloomy. Give Sir Keir Starmer and Rachel Reeves a chance. We are one of the fastest-growing G7 economies, they say. Things can only get better after 14 years of Tory chaos. Is there a way where there could be a chink of sunshine coming through the clouds?
I cannot see the situation getting any better under this government, even if they change Prime Minister. I suspect the country will shift further to the left if and when Keir Starmer is removed. I think the next Chancellor will be even more left-wing than Rachel Reeves. And I think they're just going to double down because that is where the Labour Party is going, and that is where the pressure is on the Labour Party, right? Labour's main rival, increasingly, are the Greens, and the Greens are extremely left-wing. The Greens are not just about the environment. That's the old Greens. The modern Greens are basically a radical socialist party. They believe in open borders, they're soft on crime and so on. So these are the sorts of... This is where it's all going. There's a lot of energy on the right in Britain, especially around reform. But there's also a lot of energy on the left, and that's around the Greens. And meanwhile, the Lib Dems are just trying to kind of do their own thing and grow their seats. So this is, we are moving into a fragmented but much more radical era of politics.
We're seeing the Home Secretary Shabana Mahmood seemingly channeling her inner Nigel Farage on asylum, on immigration. But could there be an economic pull factor towards the left. We're already seeing a complete inability to clamp down on things like benefits. We're seeing benefits we believe to be increased in line with inflation for the next budget, and with a huge amount of seats potentially swinging towards the Greens. Do you think we could go further to the left on the economy, and that's going to be an expensive thing for most middle-class taxpayers?
Yes, I mean, you're talking about a country where there's now 6.5 million adults on out-of-work benefits. That's a catastrophe. But that's also a huge amount of people who are incentivised to vote for more money from other people. We're living in a country where there's almost no economic growth, right? I mean, the economy barely grew in the last few months. And that means that the cake isn't growing, which means people have to fight for the cake. Well, we're going to see at the budget next week something incredibly unfair, which is yet more people being dragged into higher tax rates. At the same time, people on benefits will see their benefits uprated. So what you're seeing here is a massive redistribution from the people who put in more than they take out to the people who take out more than they put in. And that is a recipe for disaster, right? But that will radicalise both the right and the left. The left is becoming radicalised in any case because of geopolitics, because of the economy, because of AI, all that sort of stuff. But the right, of course, is very angry because they realise that the welfare state is taking them for a ride.
Superb stuff. Loads and loads to think about. And, of course, all eyes on the budget next Wednesday. Things should and could hopefully only get better. Alistair Heath, thanks for joining us as ever. Superb insight. Love it having you in the studio. Thank you, Alistair Heath. Now, plenty more to come throughout the rest of the show. But for now, if you're travelling home from work or from school, first stay safe. Here is your traffic and your travel update. And please stick with us.
Good afternoon. This is the latest AI travel news from gbnews.com. Road users face congestion on the M4 westbound at junction 33 Capel-Llanilturn. In Derby, a broken-down vehicle on the A38 southbound has closed one lane, causing 30-minute delays. In Wiltshire, a collision on the A36 southbound has closed all lanes, expected to ease this evening. At Slough, the M4 westbound entry slip at junction 6 faces disruption from a vehicle fire, expected to resolve by 7:11 this evening. And on the trains, Avanti West Coast reports major disruption at Glasgow Central, with issues between Lancaster and Oxenholme Lake District. For more travel news, go to gbnews.com.
Now for the break, I'll be joined by the astonishingly brave woman, Pauline Wally, who'll be sharing her shocking story, sexually assaulted by a Syrian immigrant. You really will not want to miss it. But first, here's your latest news headlines with Tatiana Sanchez.
Martin, thank you. The top stories: chaos at the heart of a government and a failure to take COVID-19 seriously cost 23,000 lives in the first wave of the pandemic. A public inquiry has concluded. The UK COVID-19 inquiry says the government response to the pandemic in March 2020 was too little too late. The Home Secretary has unveiled one of the most sweeping rewrites of the UK's migration rules in decades. Shabana Mahmood says there's to be tougher checks and longer waits for permanent settlement, affecting almost 2 million people. Former Met Officer David Carrick has been jailed for life again, this time with a 30-year minimum term for abusing a 12-year-old girl and raping a partner. Already serving dozens of life sentences for 71 previous offences, he was branded a manipulative predator who hid behind his warrant card. And heavy snow has forced hundreds of schools to shut across the UK after England, Wales and Northern Ireland had their coldest night of autumn. Amber warnings remain for some, with up to 25 centimetres of snow and even so-called thundersnow possible. And those are the latest headlines. For now, more from me in half an hour.
You can now watch GB News live across the United States of America and the world on Truth Plus. Scan the QR code to find out more, or visit gbnews.com/truth.
Hi there, welcome to the latest update from the Met Office for GB News. It certainly feels cold out there, particularly in the wind towards the northeast. The wind's coming from the Arctic at the moment, bringing showers for some, but actually dry, bright weather for many. And the showers will ease during the rest of the day, leading to a period of weather in which it's cold but dry. And the main hazard overnight becomes ice because of the showers that we've seen across the north, the east, into Northern Ireland, these western fringes of West Wales as well as Cornwall. Well, there'll be some slippery surfaces where we've seen these showers coming through, where temperatures fall overnight, because it's going to be a widely frosty one. Temperatures dipping -2 to -6 Celsius widely, below -10 Celsius for some snow-covered parts of Scotland. So a freezing start to the day on Friday, but a bright start. There'll be some fog patches here and there, but plenty of sunshine for Scotland. Fewer showers for sure compared with the last few days. Northern Ireland likewise, clear blue skies in the morning, the best period of weather for Northern Ireland Friday morning. And then for England and Wales, plenty of sunshine, but there will be some areas of cloud, particularly for the Midlands into the southeast, and also some fog patches, particularly towards the west. Still 1 or 2 showers running in from the North Sea coast, but these are going to fade through the day, leading to plenty of dry and bright weather, and after that icy start in places, it's a fine day for the vast majority. It's going to feel cold though, 5 or 6 Celsius in many places, and where we've got some snow cover, staying below freezing. But it is turning milder, a change on the way. I think for Scotland and Northern Ireland it turns cloudier through the afternoon, and then we've got these outbreaks of rain pushing into western Scotland, arriving into Northern Ireland by the evening, and they topple in across the whole of the country during Saturday, marking a change to wetter, windier, but also less cold weather this weekend.
Westminster, the ultimate clique. And you're fighting like rats in a sack. But here on the Camilla Tominey Show, we ask the questions the establishment media is too scared to ask. OK, let me ask you a straight question, because I know you're a straight-talking politician. Whether it's net zero, illegal immigration or law and order, nothing is off-limits. You had the power then.
Yeah, as I
and
say,
now you've lost it. That's the Camilla Tominey Show, a politics show that's fearless. But no, let me finish my question if you don't mind, because it is my show. Sundays at 9:30, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back. Your time is 5:39. Now it's time now for an absolutely shocking story, and please be advised that some viewers may find the following details distressing. Pauline Wally says her trust in men has been shattered after a predator crept into the basement of a building she was working in as a cleaner at the time and sexually assaulted her. And what makes this story even worse? The man convicted of the attack was a Syrian national called Ali Akhtaran, and he was only given a suspended sentence and is still allowed to stay in the same area as the attack took place in, an area where Pauline Wally still lives. Well, we can now speak with Pauline Wally and a close friend, Laura Walsh. Welcome to you both. Pauline, may I first say I'm sending you a huge amount of love and support, not only from myself, but from all GB News viewers. What happened to you is extremely harrowing and should never, ever have been allowed to happen to you. So please accept my sincere love before we get going. Laura Walsh, you're a friend of Pauline. You're here to offer support, and Pauline still finds it very distressing to talk about this. So I'm going to direct my questions initially at you, if I could. Would you mind please sharing the harrowing details, or at least the outline of what happened to Pauline last September?
So basically, Pauline was just in her workplace as a cleaner and going about her duties. And she was going down the stairs. Oh, it was a college, by the way, and it was 11 o'clock in the morning. She's going about her duties, and she was going to clean the ladies' toilets, which is in the basement of this college, which is based in Calderstones Park in Liverpool. Little did she know that Ali Akhtaran had been watching her as he waited for his 3 siblings to finish their ESOL class. He had 3 younger siblings who were in the college at the time. So he decided, while he was waiting for these 3 children, to follow Pauline down to the toilets. And he decided to enter the ladies' toilets, to which Pauline politely said, "It's an all-female space. You can't come in here." And his response to this was to violently grab Pauline, grab her by the arms and start to kind of like pull around, and then until she was on the floor. And then he got his fingers, his fingernails, and he grabbed her face and he started to smash her head onto the hard floor of the toilets. The grip was so hard that the nails actually pierced into Pauline's skin. And some weeks after the attack, she still had fingernail marks in her face. This attack continued, and then he decided to sexually assault Pauline while he was also attacking her. At the same time, he was grabbing her genitals and pulling at her clothes to get her clothes away. Now, Pauline, by her own admission, is a very, very quiet lady, and she's never actually screamed in her life before, but somehow on that day, she found a scream, and she's shared with me that she thinks that that's actually saved her life. She screamed, and it was that scream that alerted a member of the public. They came down the stairs, and that stopped the attack, because as the lady came down, obviously Ali Akhtaran had to stop. It's my belief, and I know it's your belief, Pauline, that he was going to fully rape Pauline, but he got disturbed, so he ran off. But then when he was running off, he then put his glasses back on, because he actually removed his glasses before the attack, because he actually knew how violent he was going to be. So, of course, he didn't want to smash his glasses. And also, I believe he was trying to conceal his identity, because he did have the awareness to put his glasses back on as he was running away from the scene, which was all caught on CCTV, leaving Pauline just on the floor with head injuries, very, very distressed, and very confused as to what had happened.
Laura, could I just interject at this point, because we don't have a huge amount of time. I'm really keen to get across what happened next, because you just described something which is the most horrendous assault on clearly a wonderful, vulnerable lady that shouldn't happen to anybody. But then he got a suspended sentence. He didn't even go to prison. And then you're faced with the prospect now of not knowing who he is, because as I understand it, you never even seen a photograph of this individual in court. He could be anywhere. He could wander up to Pauline again.
No, Pauline's put a request in for a photograph of him, because I know you're very frightened. Is this true, Pauline?
Yes.
So she's put a request into the police for a photograph of this man, because the last time she saw him, obviously he was attacking her in the toilet over a year ago, and she didn't attend the hearing because she was just too anxious, and she did not want to see that man again. Now, as part of his restraining order, he can't come to near Pauline's home. Now, how is she supposed to know if he's come near her home if she doesn't know what he looks like? She has no clue. He could be coming outside there today, and she wouldn't know that was him, because obviously with the trauma, her memory of what he looks like exactly is very, very blurred. And
Laura, could I interject this? But this is just utterly outrageous. And I understand Pauline and you, Laura, would like this individual to be deported. Pauline, yes. I can see you're incredibly distressed. Are you able to articulate at all how this has made you feel?
Well, I'm disappointed at the lenient sentence that Ali Akhtaran has had from the court. The workplace were excellent on the day, having to call the police and have Ali arrested on site while he was still waiting to pick up his younger siblings. The police have been excellent, but the court have been very lenient, and I've applied for undue lenient sentence I have to wait and see what happens with that. I've applied for its photo to be released so that women, not only just myself, know what he looks like. That he's a very dangerous man, and he should have had a appropriate sentence for a very serious attack. The judge actually said it was very serious, so I don't know how he could give him such a lenient sentence. 20 weeks rehabilitation.
Okay, it's just such the most harrowing story, and I really, really hope and pray that you get the resolution you deserve. Many people watching this will just be unable to believe this individual is even allowed in the country, let alone to have his liberty. Pauline Wally and Laura Walsh, thank you very much for joining us on the show today on GB News, and please, God bless to both of you. I wish you, some kind of peace. I sincerely do. Thank you both to you ladies. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
Oh, God. Right, GB News contacted the CPS, who provided this response. Sentencing is not generally a matter for the CPS to comment, as we do not impose sentences. That is for the independent judiciary. Also matters of the unduly lenient sentence scheme or for the Attorney General's office. We also contacted the Home Office, who said this. It is our long-standing policy not to comment on individual cases, and we'll seek to deport foreign criminals, but too many are exploiting our human rights laws. That is why we'll rewrite them so we can scale up their deportation and remove them from British soil. Time now for your latest European weather forecast.
Dinner under the stars tonight?
That reminds me of our travel insurance.
You mean all clear skies?
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations forecast.
Hello, some drier weather for Portugal over the next few days. Rain will affect parts of the Canaries, in particular Tenerife through Friday. Highs of 19 degrees with overcast skies. Lisbon looking nice and dry, just 10 degrees though, so still fairly chilly. Now the remnants of Storm Claudia moving into the Mediterranean, bringing some persistent wet weather through Friday and into the weekend as well. But if we look to Tenerife, it is looking much drier and brighter by Monday. Bye-bye.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations forecast.
Britain was once the envy of the world. But look around. A nation that no longer knows what it is or where it's going. A country that's broken. How do we fix Britain? How do we bring it back? Friday night with Matt Goodwin at 8 p.m.
Only on GB News.
No matter the state it's in, this is our nation. Join me, Jacob Rees-Mogg, for a genuine, honest discussion on where we have been, where we are going, and where we are with the people who set the direction. Tune in to State of the Nation every Monday to Thursday, 8 to 9 o'clock. Only on GB News.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Breast cancer is the most common cancer in the UK, and over a lifetime, 1 in 8 women will develop breast cancer. It's mostly affecting women over 50. As you mentioned before, it does affect a small proportion of men, less than 1%, but still there is a potential risk. The good news is, if caught early, survival is excellent due to improved treatments and new drugs. So 99% of women and men survive for more than 5 years if caught early. And overall, the breast cancer survival rate is about 85%, which is fantastic. It's important to know that you have to check. Women have to learn to check their breasts. So if you notice anything different, dimpling, change in shape, a lump, go and get it checked out. Even though survival rates are much improved, we do have less survival here compared to other countries. So, for example, in America, 90% of women will survive over 10 years if they're with breast cancer. So it is important to get checked out just as soon as you notice any changes whatsoever.
Why is there that difference, Lucy, between, say, us and America, for example?
Well, the UK lags behind generally in cancer survival, 10 to 25 years, they estimate, over a range of cancers. That includes prostate, ovarian, lung, breast, and bowel cancer. And there could be a number of reasons, but I think part of the problem, the NHS is great when you get to the front of the queue, isn't it? But it's actually getting there.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Britain deserves a newsroom that puts the facts and your voice first.
Well, and that's what you get on GB News. Lively debates, lively conversation.
And we're not afraid to hold power to account.
And each other. So join me, Andrew Pearce.
And me, Miriam Gates, for Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 on GB News.
Welcome back now. A new survey suggests that parents are increasingly giving their children mental health days away from school, averaging 6 a year. Generation Snowflake. I'm joined in the studio by the psychotherapist Lucy Beresford. Lucy, this is middle-class women treating their kids like they're snowflakes. It's ridiculous.
Well, I would have to agree with you that it's ridiculous. I wouldn't say there were snowflakes, but I think there is something very perverse going on the same day that we get the COVID inquiry, which just showed how ruinous lockdowns were for the mental health of our children, that there are parents out there who still think that the way to raise your child and teach it resilience is to take them out of school. So I think this is a wake-up call to recognise that there are some parents who are too indulgent.
I think you're exactly right. Now, 90% claim that the mental health of the children is more important than attending school. I put it to you that two things are intertwined. My children were heartbroken when they couldn't go to school.
That's right. And we know that actually from an educational point of view, but also just from learning social skills, having kids out of school during lockdown and the pandemic was really detrimental, not just to their life chances, but also to their well-being. So for parents to be indulging in this, to be perpetuating that idea that children are better off being at home and not socialising with their peer group is fantasyland.
Lucy Beresford, short but sweet and bang on the money. Thank you very much indeed. Now, coming next is Jubes & Co. Tonight, hosted by the magnificent Nana Acquia. I'll be back at 7 p.m, filling in for Nigel Farage. Thanks for joining me on the show today. A huge amount yet to come. Stick with us and I'll see you at 7.
Today, clouds overhead. Total zen within. Boxed Solar sponsors the weather on GB News.
Hi there, welcome to the latest update from the Met Office for GB News. Certainly feels cold out there, particularly in the wind towards the northeast. The wind's coming from the Arctic at the moment, bringing showers for some, but actually dry, bright weather for many. And the showers will ease during the rest of the day, leading to a period of weather in which it's cold but dry. And the main hazard overnight becomes ice because of the showers that we've seen across the north, the east, into Northern Ireland, these western fringes of West Wales, as well as Cornwall. Well, there'll be some slippery surfaces where we've seen these showers coming through, where temperatures fall overnight, because it's going to be a widely frosty one. Temperatures dipping -2 to -6 Celsius widely, below -10 Celsius for some snow-covered parts of Scotland. So a freezing start to the day on Friday, but a bright start. So there'll be some fog patches here and there, but plenty of sunshine for Scotland. Fewer showers for sure compared with the last few days. Northern Ireland likewise, clear blue skies in the morning, the best period of weather for Northern Ireland Friday morning. And then for England and Wales, plenty of sunshine, but there will be some areas of cloud, particularly for the Midlands into the southeast, and also some fog patches, particularly towards the west. Still 1 or 2 showers running in from the North Sea coast, but these are going to fade through the day, leading to plenty of dry and bright weather, and after that icy start in places, it's a fine day for the vast majority. It's going to feel cold though, 5 or 6 Celsius in many places, and where we've got some snow cover staying below freezing. But it is turning milder, a change on the way. I think for Scotland and Northern Ireland it turns cloudier through the afternoon, and then we've got these outbreaks of rain pushing into western Scotland, arriving into Northern Ireland by the evening, and they topple in across the whole of the country during Saturday, marking a change to wetter, windier, but also less cold weather this weekend.
Today, clouds overhead. Total zen within. Boxed Solar sponsors the weather on GB News.
Thank you, Britain, for making us the fastest growing news website in the UK.
We're truly humbled, and we couldn't have done it without you.
Good evening. This is the latest AI travel news from GBNews.com. The M8 westbound at Junction 12 is closed due to a police incident causing traffic congestion. Expect delays on the M4 westbound near Capel Lanilturn and on the A1M southbound between junctions 46 and 44. In Lancashire, the M58 westbound slip road at Junction 5 is closed due to a vehicle fire, as is the M4 westbound slip road at Junction 6 in Slough. The A36 southbound in Wiltshire is fully closed following an accident. And on the trains, Avanti West Coast services are disrupted at Glasgow Central and between Lancaster and Oxenholme Lake District. For more travel news, go to gbnews.com.
There's just 2 weeks left to see how you could win your Christmas this year paid for by us. First, we'll give you an incredible £30,000 in tax-free cash. Then we'll give you a further £10,000 cash to spend on all your Christmas presents, even the tree.